Inside a crowded neighborhood, we see a messy room where a teenager is fast asleep after a long night of playing video games. His alarm starts buzzing at 7:05 in the morning, and he slowly wakes up feeling completely exhausted. Sitting on his bed, the teenager looks at his phone and sighs, because he really wants to quit school today. Walking into the kitchen, he finds a little note left by his mother telling him to eat well and head out. After getting dressed in his high school uniform, the boy steps outside his basement home to start another boring day. As he walks down the street, he looks up at the massive luxury apartments that tower over his poor neighborhood. The boy realizes that the rich kids living in those tall buildings probably have no idea how hard his life is. Arriving at his high school, the poor boy is immediately knocked to the floor by some mean classmates in the hallway. A mean 18-year-old named Park Songbin gets angry after hearing the quiet student whisper a curse word. Suddenly, a beautiful girl named Han Yena interrupts the scene and tells the bully to stop picking on weaker kids. The bully quickly puts the teenager in a headlock and laughs, saying that they are only playing around like friends. She is not buying his excuses and complains about how annoying they are being in the middle of the school. It turns out that this popular classmate lives in the exact luxury apartment building that the boy looks at from his room. Apart from being extremely famous on social media, she is also highly intelligent and gets the best grades in class. The lucky student is even preparing to study abroad in America next year to continue her perfect life. But the perfect girl has one major flaw because she absolutely despises anyone she considers a poor loser. The boy remembers back in the 8th grade when he finally found the courage to ask if they could walk home together. She immediately rejected him by saying he smelled bad and demanded that he take another route to stay away from her. That was the moment he realized she hated him, and he began to wonder if rich people just naturally smelled better. Even in high school, they end up in the same class where she constantly complains about sitting next to him. He feels pathetic for still liking a girl who crushes his feelings while the school bully destroys him physically. Living this miserable routine every single day makes the student feel completely humiliated by his own life. Outside the school, some classmates chat about the latest anime season and an upcoming offline gaming event. His only friends are two 18-year-olds named Sunho and Byungjun, who are lucky enough to escape the daily bullying. While they discuss concert tickets, the protagonist quietly thinks that he is the only one cursed with a miserable life. The boys suddenly startle him and show a photo of a famous female idol named Jien to see if he wants to join them. With a fake smile, he declines the invitation and stands up to announce that he is completely done with idols. His friends watch him leave and assume his bad mood is because of the recent dating rumors about his favorite star. Entering class number 2-3, the young man sits at his desk, hoping that the boring day will finally end. Nearby, the school bully Songbin loudly brags about his MMA gym training and how easily he could beat up other kids. While the bullies gossip about a student from North Korea, a tough 18-year-old named Kang Hokshiol suddenly confronts them. Songbin immediately snaps and grabs the quiet student by the collar, but his opponent remains completely calm and unfazed. Scared of a real fight, the other classmates quickly step in to separate the two boys before things get worse. Leaning close to the bully, the tough student whispers a chilling warning for him to behave if he wants to stay alive. The bully walks away in frustration, while the protagonist watches the intense interaction with sweat on his face. Sitting quietly at his desk, the teenager looks around the classroom and complains about his terrible school. Walking back home, the student makes a firm decision to quit school tomorrow so he can finally find some happiness. While walking down the street, the teenager gets surprised when the school bully and his friends suddenly corner him. Smiling wickedly, the bully demands that Minjun find a random grandmother to buy cigarettes for them. Knowing he is going to quit school tomorrow, the boy desperately wants to curse the bully out for the very first time. Instead of actually saying anything, he simply ignores the group and continues walking away, which shocks the bullies. His quiet rebellion backfires immediately when the bullies drag him into an empty construction site and beat him up. Grabbing a heavy brick, the angry bully looks down at the bleeding teenager and wonders if he should just end his life. Completely defeated, the poor student looks up and begs the bully to kill him because he has no desire to live anymore. This unexpected response completely stuns the bully while his friends laugh and mock the weird situation. The angry bully kicks him and delivers a dark threat about finding his mother if he actually dies. The other boys think that went too far, so they quickly leave him bleeding alone on the cold concrete. After waking up, the beaten student slowly walks back to his neighborhood, wishing that the world would just end. Suddenly, his feet stop as he looks up at the massive luxury apartment building and contemplates ending it all. Walking straight into the private apartment complex, he decides that he has no reason to continue living. Suddenly, a voice calls out, and he turns around to see his popular classmate Han Yena staring right at him. Looking extremely annoyed, she asks what he is doing at her building and accuses him of sneaking inside. The popular classmate accuses him of being a thief, which makes the boy feel even more worthless. Suddenly, her eyes land on his bruised face and she asks if someone actually beat him up. She gets frustrated and starts lecturing the teenager about standing up for himself against the school bullies. Tired of her harsh words, the young man simply turns around and walks away without saying a single thing. While she calls him spineless, the boy makes a firm decision to finally confront his bully the very next day. Heading back to his messy room, the student tries to find a way to distract his mind from all the drama. Putting his headphones on, he realizes how ridiculous it is that her harsh words actually made him want to stay alive. Minjin plays games to escape his reality, feeling glad that he will never have to see his bullies or the rich girl again. Time passes slowly in his basement room until a loud crash from outside suddenly echoes through the quiet neighborhood. Ignoring the weird sound, the teenager focuses on typing fast and coordinates with his teammates to clear out the zombies. Things get weird when his friends suddenly announce that they have to log off the game right in the middle of their round. Glancing at the clock, he realizes it is already past 10 at night when his friend tells him to check the crazy news. A loud pounding noise suddenly shakes the walls of his apartment and forces him to quickly take off his gaming headset. Walking slowly toward the kitchen, he hears more heavy knocks on the front door and wonders who could be visiting him so late. The persistent banging on his door continues, and the boy starts to feel extremely creeped out by the late visitor. Leaning close to the peephole, he peeks outside and notices his upstairs neighbor begging for help in a weak voice. Seeing blood splattered across the hallway stairs, he assumes the old man is just drunk and made a mess again. Deciding to check on him, the young student slowly turns the doorknob and opens the door to look outside. His eyes widen in complete shock when he notices a massive injury on the man's stomach area. Terrified by the sight, the boy frantically asks if he should dial 119 for an emergency ambulance. Instead of replying, the pale man suddenly opens his mouth wide and lets out a terrifying screech. Without warning, the crazy neighbor lunges inside the apartment and starts screaming like a wild animal. Terrified by the sudden attack, the boy uses all of his strength to kick the madman out of his room. He quickly slams the front door shut and locks it to keep the screaming threat outside. His legs shake uncontrollably as he tries to understand why his neighbor looked so monstrous. Kneeling on the floor, the student grabs his phone to call the police, but the line is completely dead. Instead of a normal tone, his screen lights up with several emergency alerts about active terror attacks. Before he can even process the scary messages, another loud crash from upstairs makes him jump in fear. Opening his basement window, the boy witnesses a chaotic scene of people attacking each other in the dark street. Shock fills his chest when he spots his upstairs neighbor violently lunging at another person in the crowd. Realizing his mother should be on her way home, he quickly dials her number, but the call fails to connect. Suddenly, all the lights inside the basement shut off, leaving the young student completely trapped in darkness. Terrified by the sounds outside, the teenager covers himself with a blanket while trying to stay quiet. Grabbing his phone, he tries to load a web page but discovers that the internet connection is completely dead. Turning on his television, he watches a scary news broadcast about random violent attacks happening across the nation. The news channel reports that the government is treating the situation as a massive act of terrorism. The broadcast shows chaotic videos of people violently biting and attacking each other on the streets of Busan. Sitting alone on the floor, the teenager realizes that this national crisis looks exactly like a zombie outbreak. Still doubting his own eyes, he suddenly gets up after remembering that his infected neighbor is roaming around outside. The young man decides to lock the main entrance of the building and peeks through his peephole to check the dark stairwell. Quietly stepping out into the bloodstained hallway, he carefully glances up the stairs to make sure the coast is clear. He reaches the glass exit door, but a loud creaking sound instantly alerts the terrifying monster walking in the alley. Quickly locking the building entrance door, the teenager finally lets out a sigh of relief. Looking up the dark stairwell, he wonders if the neighbors are fine and decides to wait for rescue inside. Back in his basement room, the boy watches the television as the news reporter details the chaotic attacks. Panic sets in when the screen suddenly goes blank and the signal gets completely cut off. Unable to sleep, the student lies awake in bed while terrifying sounds echo from the neighborhood outside. Staring at the wall, he remembers how badly he wanted his miserable life and the entire world to end. The teenager finds it deeply ironic that he is now fighting so desperately to stay alive. Staring at the ceiling, Minjin realizes his life has always felt like a total nightmare anyway. Morning arrives and reveals a completely chaotic street filled with blood and roaming monsters. Gently cracking his door open, the teenager peeks outside and witnesses the ruined neighborhood. The heavy scent of blood in the air instantly confirms that his normal life is officially over. Quickly shutting the main entrance, he locks the deadbolt to keep the nearby monsters away. Leaning against the door, he knows that stepping outside right now is basically a death sentence. Heading down to his dark basement room, the student decides to check his stash of instant ramen. Looking over his kitchen supplies, the boy calculates that he has enough food to survive alone for about 1 month. Holding his useless phone, he worries about his mother since the entire communication network is completely dead. The teenager remembers that 5 households live in the building and wonders if the college student on the rooftop is safe. Since yesterday was Tuesday, the young man remembers that the neighbor usually brings his girlfriend over on that day. Walking up the stairs as quietly as possible, he finds no signs of life and prays that the rooftop guy is still human. Approaching the top floor, the student gets surprised when he notices that the main door to the roof is wide open. Stepping outside into the bright daylight, he decides to keep completely quiet instead of calling out for help. His heart sinks when he spots a pair of slippers left outside and sees that the bedroom door is also left open. Minjun slowly steps inside the quiet rooftop apartment only to find the entire room completely turned upside down. Thinking nobody is home, the boy suddenly freezes when his eyes land on dark red stains splattered across the floor. A terrifying figure covered in blood stands in the corner, making the teenager tremble in absolute fear. Desperate to escape, the boy begins to back away as slowly and quietly as possible to avoid attracting attention. His luck runs out when he accidentally bumps into a flower pot, sending it crashing loudly onto the concrete floor. Hearing a horrific screech, the frightened teenager immediately turns around and starts running for his life. In his immense panic, his loose slipper slips off, causing him to crash heavily onto the hard ground. The blood-covered monster lunges forward and tries to grab the terrified teenager on the narrow rooftop. Quick reflexes save him as he ducks to the ground and lets the charging beast fly right over his head. Unable to stop its momentum, the mindless creature plunges off the edge and falls down to the street below. Staring in complete disbelief, the high schooler collapses onto the floor after witnessing the shocking drop. Anxious to escape, he quickly locks the rooftop door and runs down the stairwell as fast as possible. Barging into his safe basement room, the exhausted student shuts the door and collapses onto the warm floor. Heavy gasps fill the quiet room, while his hands shake uncontrollably from the terrifying encounter. Overwhelmed by fear, the boy wonders if the rooftop neighbor is actually dead, and if he just took a life. Kneeling on the floor of his messy room, the teenager desperately tries to convince himself that it was not his fault. As night falls, the boy watches the clock and feels the dark room getting more suffocating. Sitting alone in the corner, he spends the entire day tormented by the thought of pushing someone to their death. Deciding he cannot stay hiding forever, the student finally stands up and slowly cracks open his front door. Stepping outside into the quiet alley, he spots a bloody figure walking slowly through the abandoned street. Cold sweat drips down his face when the terrifying creature turns around and reveals itself to be the rooftop neighbor. Minjun gets shocked when he realizes that the rooftop neighbor actually survived the fall but became a zombie. Watching the bloody creature wander around the dark street makes him accept that the man is no longer human. As the monster slowly stumbles away from the building, the boy notices that his intense fear is starting to fade. By the 3rd day of the apocalypse, the young student sits in his room eating hot food before the gas gets cut off. He realizes that hiding in the dark basement is a bad idea because his food supplies will eventually run out. Staring at his barricaded window, the teenager decides that he must head back outside tomorrow to search for help. After facing so many life-threatening situations over the last few days, he is no longer terrified of the monsters. Minjun's phone suddenly starts buzzing with an incoming call from his mother. Quickly answering the call, he learns that his mother is currently safe inside a military shelter. The call suddenly cuts off, leaving the young student relieved but still worried about the chaotic situation. Suddenly, several text messages from his friends Sunho and Byungjun begin to flood his phone screen. Realizing that they are also safe, the teenager wonders why nobody else has tried to contact him. He suddenly thinks of his popular classmate Han Yena, who actually lives the closest to his location. Minjun remembers the time last year when the school bullies came over to his room to hang out and drink. The memory shows the bullies sitting in his room and getting excited when they realize the popular girl is coming over. Stepping through the front door, the beautiful classmate looks completely displeased with her surroundings. The boys happily welcome her inside, but her bare feet instantly get stuck on the dirty apartment floor. She immediately decides to leave, while complaining about the cheap place and how much she despises the poor student. Back in the present, the teenager sits in his barricaded bathroom and wonders if the popular girl is safe from the monsters. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted when a quiet voice from outside the bathroom door calls out his name. Staring at the locked door, the confused student wonders if his own mind is just playing tricks on him. The popular classmate desperately calls out his name from outside, which leaves him completely shocked. Crouching near the taped basement window, she pleads for him to open up because she heard him talking inside. Suddenly, a terrifying growl echoes behind her as a group of blood-covered monsters spots her in the alley. Terrified for her life, the popular girl frantically bangs on the entrance and begs him to respond. Hearing her desperate cries, the boy decides to unlock the door and urges her to get inside immediately. She quickly slips through the entrance, and they shut the door just in time. The mindless creatures slam against the locked glass door, but the teenagers are finally safe inside. Leaning against the wall, she pants heavily after escaping the jaws of those monsters. The popular girl sits on the floor of his messy basement room while trying to catch her breath. The teenager asks if she is okay, but gets surprised when she suddenly grabs his shirt. She collapses onto his chest and begins to shake violently from all the terror. Holding her close in the middle of his messy room, the boy wonders what exactly happened to her. He gently asks if she is fine, and she slowly releases her tight grip on his clothes. Looking up at him, the beautiful classmate actually thanks the protagonist using his full name. She admits that she would have died without his help, which makes the boy blush. He tells her that she is safe now, while she quietly begins to look around his dark room. Looking around the room, the girl asks if he is alone, and he explains that his mother is currently safe with a military unit. When he asks about her own family, she mentions that her dad is safe, but quickly hesitates when bringing up her mother. She quickly changes the subject to ask for some drinking water, because she has not had a single sip in several days. After receiving a bottle, the thirsty girl immediately starts gulping down the precious liquid without stopping. The teenager gets worried about their limited supply, but decides to let it go since she risked her life to reach him. Feeling curious, the young man asks if she came from her building and wonders why she chose to visit his cheap basement. His eyes widen in complete shock when she reveals that she has actually been hiding outside this entire time. The flashback starts 3 days ago when the girl decided to head outside for a quick walk. Suddenly, chaos erupted in the middle of the street as screaming crowds began running away from some invisible threat. She ran blindly until finding a safe stairwell, and the boy gets shocked to hear she survived all alone. The popular classmate explains that she managed to sneak into a small meeting room with a locked inner door. A small bottle of water she luckily found inside kept her going for days. By the 3rd day, hunger forced her outside to search for help while dodging dangerous monsters. Spotting infected people blocking her path, she decided to take a detour through a quiet alley. Her detour led her straight into his poor neighborhood, which she had to cross to reach her own apartment. The girl recalls running through the dangerous streets because she had no other choice but to find his basement home. Remembering his exact address, she carefully dodges the zombie-like creatures roaming around the quiet alleys. Back in the present, the teenager admits he is glad to see her and praises her extreme courage for stepping outside. Feeling extremely hot and sticky, the popular classmate stretches her arms and asks if the tap water is still running. The boy points out her sweaty clothes and kindly offers to let her borrow some of his clean shirts. Instead of thanking him, she takes offense to his comment and immediately starts beating him up in frustration. After releasing her anger, the beautiful classmate heads toward the bathroom to take a quick shower instead. Left alone in the middle of his messy room, the poor student wonders why she suddenly got so angry at him. While the girl showers in the next room, the young man sits on the floor trying to process the crazy situation. Having another person to feed means his 1-month supply of food will now run out twice as fast. Thinking about how the popular girl is actually showering at his place feels as unreal as the zombie apocalypse. He remembers how she used to treat him like a total bug and would never even make eye contact at school. Suddenly, the bathroom door swings open, and the girl casually demands that he lend her some clean clothes to wear. The nervous student quickly scrambles to his closet and offers her some of his own pajamas. Holding the shirt up to her nose, the girl immediately complains about the terrible musty smell of his laundry. Even though she absolutely hates the scent, she realizes there are no other options and decides to just put it on. The girl complains about the terrible smell, while the boy tries to explain that he washed the clothes recently. The boy wonders how she can care about odors during an apocalypse while scary growls echo from the streets outside. After finishing some instant noodles, the popular classmate asks what their next plan is while waiting for rescue. He mentions his plan of moving to a different location, which immediately causes the terrified girl to panic. The teenager reassures her that they can stay put, but she immediately worries about what happens when food runs out. He explains that their only option would be to raid neighboring apartments, even though infected monsters might be inside. Standing up in complete fear, she refuses to leave the room and suggests waiting until the food actually runs out. Yenna explains how dangerous the streets are, but the boy realizes she managed to travel a whole kilometer safely. The popular classmate looks downcast while her companion explains that the monsters spread their disease through bites. Looking away, the protagonist calmly admits that he does not care about getting infected since he has nothing to lose. This statement makes her furious because she has big plans to study abroad in America next year and wants to live. He suggests that staying safe is easy since some monsters are heavily injured and move much slower than a normal sprint. The teenager smiles and suggests they should treat this survival situation like a simple game of childhood tag. She calls him crazy and points out that she is actually terrified of the dangerous creatures outside. Feeling completely exhausted, the beautiful girl decides to lie down on the floor and demands some blankets. The teenager gets totally confused when his classmate suddenly gets angry at him for setting up his blanket nearby. She points toward the dark kitchen and bossily demands that he sleep over there instead of next to her. The girl dramatically sighs and claims she will take the worst spot since she is just an uninvited guest. She even threatens to sleep in the dangerous hallway until the panicked boy frantically begs her to stay inside. His plan totally backfires and he ends up lying on the hard kitchen floor while she takes the comfortable bed. Despite losing his own bed, the teenager feels somewhat relieved because he is no longer facing the end of the world alone. Terrifying growls from the monsters echo through the dark streets while the two classmates try to sleep through the night. Yena lies awake in the dark and suddenly calls out to Minjin, which completely catches him off guard. He kindly invites her to sleep on the bed since she is too terrified to stay alone in the dark corner. Even with terrifying monster noises echoing outside the barricades, she finally gets some comfortable rest. Shedding silent tears under the blankets, the popular girl admits to herself that she really misses her mother. Sitting quietly by the door, the teenager hears her soft whimpering and realizes how scared she actually is. Morning finally arrives over the city, revealing infected monsters roaming around the blood-stained balconies. The boy stands nearby in his glasses and wonders how long his classmate plans on sleeping through the day. After sleeping soundly despite her fears, the beautiful classmate finally wakes up late in the morning. The girl gets surprised when she notices her companion putting on a jacket and preparing to head back to the rooftop. She quickly warns him about the dangerous monsters up there, but the teenager calmly promises to just avoid them. After she frantically refuses his invitation to join him, the boy decides to leave her behind and head out alone. Walking quietly up the concrete stairs, the young man carefully prepares himself for whatever lies ahead. He suddenly stops when he notices a massive crack on the glass door and realizes it will not hold much longer. Continuing his climb up the dark stairwell, the teenager wrinkles his nose after detecting a terrible smell. Yena follows the protagonist up the stairs to the rooftop, while feeling extremely anxious about what they might find there. Stepping inside the apartment, the young man spots a bloody body and realizes that the rooftop neighbor's girlfriend is dead. After saying a quick prayer for the poor victim, the teenager slowly exits the messy apartment with a heavy heart. He warns his classmate about the tragic scene inside and tells her that they should definitely avoid entering the room. Sitting on the sunny rooftop, they discuss their options and think about lighting a signal fire to attract a rescue helicopter. The girl suddenly shouts to search for other survivors, but the boy quickly warns her that monsters might hear her voice. Back in the basement, the popular classmate teases him for not knowing his personality type or having social media followers. When the boy mentions his love for a zombie game, the popular girl laughs at the irony of playing it during a real apocalypse. She keeps chatting about personality tests, and the boy realizes he is now the only person left to listen to her voice. As she playfully nudges his leg, he remembers his old crush and wonders if being trapped with her is actually a good thing. The beautiful girl quickly gets annoyed when she notices him spacing out and calls him a crazy loser for ignoring her. Days pass by slowly inside the barricaded basement, while the two classmates try to survive the apocalypse together. A few days later, the girl lies comfortably on the floor and loudly demands to know if he finished doing the laundry. Washing her dirty clothes in the bathroom, the angry student quietly swears that he will eventually escape on his own. He complains about being treated like her slave while keeping his real thoughts completely hidden like a true introvert. With the power completely gone, the teenager has to wash their clothes by hand while their food supplies run dangerously low. Before heading out, the young man gets bossed around by his classmate, who demands that he return within 30 minutes. Stepping through the cracked glass door, he begins his daily patrol around the neighborhood using only the safest paths. After studying the monsters for several days, he realizes they behave exactly like zombies and only attack living humans. Since their vision is terrible, they cannot spot someone from far away, but they are extremely sensitive to any sudden noise. The creatures usually hide from the bright sunlight during the day, which makes going outside at night incredibly dangerous. Watching them gather in the shadows, the teenager realizes that their behavior is identical to his favorite zombie video game. Thinking about his favorite video game, the teenager suspects that this horrific outbreak is not just a coincidence. Looking out at the quiet neighborhood, he fears that the real end of the world is only starting. Inside the dark basement room, the beautiful classmate sighs in boredom after finishing all the comic books. She gets highly annoyed that the protagonist is taking so long and decides that she needs to train him better. The loud sound of a flying helicopter suddenly echoes from the sky and briefly captures her attention. She knows that lighting fires on the rooftops is completely useless because nobody is coming to save them. Time continues to pass slowly as the lonely girl sits on the floor and worries about her missing friend. Yenna paces around the messy basement while worrying that her companion got attacked by the monsters. The sun begins to set over the city as she grows more anxious about him being gone for over an hour. Sitting on the floor, the popular girl begins to cry while wondering if the boy actually died out there. Hugging her knees near a single candle, she desperately begs him to not leave her all alone in the dark. Suddenly, a loud clicking sound echoes from the front door, and the teenager bursts inside with excitement. The protagonist instantly freezes after noticing her teary eyes and sad expression. Furious that he is 3 hours late, she tries to hit him, while he frantically asks her to look at something. Showing her a paper, the teenager explains that he was late because he went to retrieve leaflets dropped by a helicopter. The girl gasps after reading that their entire city is scheduled for a complete military lockdown by tomorrow evening. Looking at the back of the flyer, they realize that most of the surrounding areas are already marked as very dangerous. The protagonist realizes that staying hidden is no longer an option and they must escape before the border closes. Since the northern routes are blocked, he suggests they make a run for the river to cross into a safer region. Packing his backpack, the teenager hopes to find a secure military base set up in a nearby neighborhood with low infections. Watching him take charge of the situation, the popular girl admits that she is actually impressed by his smart planning. The boy warns that they must escape immediately, but his companion hesitates because she wants to wait for a rescue. He firmly tells her to stay in the basement if she wants to die, which forces her to reluctantly agree with his plan. She decides to gather her things and asks for an extra bag so they can pack all their remaining food. Morning quickly arrives over the silent neighborhood as the sun shines through the heavily barricaded window. Wearing their backpacks, the two teenagers stand by the main door and prepare to face the dangerous streets. Before opening the door, the protagonist hesitates and asks if she is truly fine without searching for her father. The beautiful girl gets quiet for a second before flashing a fake smile and telling him to just focus on escaping. The girl suddenly reveals her parents successfully reached a safe shelter and tells him it is time to move. Stepping outside into the bright sunlight, the teenager carefully leads the way down the quiet neighborhood street. Spotting a dangerous monster ahead, the boy quickly gestures for his classmate to slip past without making a sound. Looking down from above, the streets are completely ruined with overturned vehicles and infected creatures wandering around. They sneak past a destroyed bus where a bloody billboard of a famous idol serves as a reminder of their old lives. While walking, the young man explains that the creatures hate the bright sun, but they must still remain extremely careful. The girl complains about the distance and wonders why there are no bicycles or scooters left for them to use. Feeling exhausted from walking so fast, the girl begs for a 5-minute break, but her companion simply walks ahead. The annoyed classmate continues to complain, while the protagonist warns her that the dangerous creatures might hear them. Her constant complaints and requests for water begin to test his patience as they navigate through the quiet streets. Suddenly, the two teenagers stop in their tracks after spotting a massive barricade of vehicles and random furniture. The boy explains that this blocked neighborhood should be safer, but wonders why there are no guards stationed nearby. Climbing over the heavy truck barricade, the teenager advises his beautiful companion to keep her guard up. When she tries to find a spot to rest, he tells her to stop exaggerating, which immediately makes her highly offended. The girl stares at her companion in disbelief as they find themselves standing together in the quiet street. They stare at each other while realizing that their current situation feels incredibly familiar. The beautiful girl unexpectedly offers a quiet apology which completely shocks the young student. Their conversation gets cut short when the teenager spots a group of blood-covered monsters charging right at them. Grabbing her hand tight, the boy quickly drags his companion away as they run for their lives down the street. The popular classmate complains about the sudden attack because she believed this area was supposed to be safe. Suddenly, the running teenager spots another survivor who gestures for them to quickly hide behind a barricade. While trying to seal the entrance, the young man gets shocked when the survivor suddenly calls him by his full name. They count to 3 to push a heavy wooden cabinet, but a rabid monster instantly slams against the barricade. The terrified protagonist screams in absolute horror when the wild creature completely breaks through their defenses. Realizing their barrier is useless, the other survivor shouts at them to run away before getting caught by the beast. The two classmates sprint down the alleyway and quickly climb up a massive pile of furniture to escape the chase. After reaching the top of the barrier, the young man tells his classmate to jump down to the street below. Tears fill her eyes when the popular girl lands poorly and realizes that she just sprained her ankle during the fall. Two blood-covered monsters charge straight toward the teenagers, while the boy freezes in complete terror. The teenager remembers her harsh words from school about having the courage to stand up and fight back. Making a bold decision, the brave student pulls out his weapon and stands firmly in front of his classmate. Suddenly, the loud roar of a motorcycle engine echoes through the alley as a voice shouts for them to get down. Before he can even react, a mysterious rider dashes past them and strikes the oncoming beast with a heavy bat. A group of aggressive young men on scooters quickly surrounds the monsters and begins beating them without mercy. One of the strange saviors laughs about their attack and claims that riding around hitting monsters is incredibly fun. Yena looks up in absolute shock when she recognizes the leader of the motorcycle gang. Minjun instantly freezes in fear as he realizes the mysterious rider is actually his worst school bully, Park Songbin. Smiling wickedly, the bully points at the teenager's kitchen knife and mocks him for trying to fight monsters with it. The protagonist lies about just meeting the popular girl randomly, while she politely thanks the group for saving her. The bully boasts about having a safe hideout with several adults and invites the beautiful girl to join their group. He offers her a seat on his scooter, while rudely telling the protagonist and his friend to ride a kickboard together. A shady glance from the bully makes the girl feel extremely uneasy, as the other boys whisper about bringing her along. Smiling wickedly, the mean bully tells the beautiful classmate to jump on his scooter, while she looks back in worry. The other gang members quickly complain about the poor student, because they think he will just slow down their group. Suddenly, the mean leader changes his mind and casually decides that they can bring the quiet boy along anyway. Shocking everyone, the protagonist completely rejects the offer and states that he will handle things on his own. While his classmate stares in absolute disbelief, the young student turns around and starts walking away from them. This quiet rebellion makes the bully snap as he loudly threatens to smash his head with a heavy baseball bat. Glancing back with a calm expression, the brave teenager refuses to show fear while his enemy orders him to get over there. Terrified by the dark threat, the beautiful girl immediately steps in and screams at the angry bully to stop the madness. Yena angrily confronts the bully about his past actions while the poor student watches in silence. Nearby, the other gang members whisper creepy comments about the beautiful girl after looking at her social media photos. The group loudly laughs and mocks the protagonist, which only makes him feel more stressed as they walk together. To diffuse the tension, the beautiful classmate apologizes to the bully and agrees to follow them to their hideout. The pleased bully warns them that going out alone is suicide and promises to help them leave the neighborhood tomorrow. Leading them down a narrow alley, the group approaches a blocked entrance that serves as their secret safe house. The protagonist suddenly recognizes the location and feels terrified because this is where the bully always beat him up. Stepping inside the dark shelter, they witness the other survivors arguing about fixing the gaps in their barricades. Leaning close to his classmate, the teenager whispers that they need to find a chance to slip away from this creepy group. The popular girl tells him to relax because the mean leader has basically been her loyal lackey since elementary school. The boy warns her that she is being naive since she does not understand how dangerous these guys actually are. Stepping forward, the protagonist bravely announces to the group that they have decided to head back instead of staying. She explains they must reach the shelter where her parents are, but the bully coldly replies that the entire area was wiped out. Songbin demands to know why she would risk her life to travel with a massive loser when she could stay with him. Feeling extremely nervous, the beautiful girl insists that they really must go and tries to turn around to leave. Suddenly, a loud whack echoes through the hallway as a heavy bat slams down to block their escape route. The bully blocks them and demands that they stay until tomorrow, while mocking their sudden closeness. Anxious and angry, the beautiful girl clenches her fist while trying to stand her ground against him. Knowing how dangerous things could get, the protagonist steps in and suggests that they just follow the group. The classmate reluctantly agrees because night is falling as they follow the leader deeper into the alleyway. Minjun carefully inspects the hideout and notices that their wooden barricades are actually poorly made. Stepping closer to the terrified girl, the young student gently taps her arm and whispers for her to not worry. Looking at his frightened classmate, the boy promises to stay by her side during this crazy journey. Suddenly, a loud crash startles them as blood-covered monsters begin banging against the thin walls of the safe house. While the bully laughs it off, the protagonist realizes that they are completely surrounded in a terrible location. To get away from the danger, they are ordered to climb a metal ladder to reach the second floor of the compound. Stepping inside the upper room, the teenager gets nervous when they meet a group of intimidating older guys. A 19-year-old named Lee Bongyu immediately recognizes the beautiful classmate from her popular online profile. Feeling deeply creeped out by the big guy, she nervously mentions that the military is about to lock down their city. The boys boast about their luxury setup, which is fully stocked with firewood fuel and heavy barricades. Minjin looks around and suspects that these bullies actually took over someone else's shelter by force. Hearing the older guys make creepy comments about her, she instantly regrets not listening to his warnings. Taking a deep breath, the popular girl taps the school bully on the shoulder and asks to talk in private. She complains about the creepy atmosphere and demands that he let her leave the base right away. The girl says she is heading back because she does not believe his stories about the blocked river bridges. When the popular girl tries to leave, the bully suddenly grabs her arm and aggressively refuses to let her go. Gathering his courage, the protagonist steps in and demands that his classmate be released immediately. The bully only laughs at his quiet rebellion and dares him to use his kitchen knife if he is not a coward. Suddenly, the older student walks in to see the drama, and the bully quickly tries to play down the situation. He immediately snitches about the weapon, which prompts the big guy to demand the boy hand it over. Holding his kitchen knife, the teenager realizes he cannot take on 5 older guys all by himself. The secondary bully towers over him and demands complete obedience under their ridiculous rules. Suddenly, the creepy leader grabs the popular girl and tries to force her inside his deluxe camping tent. To buy some time, the terrified girl acts cute and nervously asks the big guy for some food instead. The leader happily agrees to throw a massive food party, while the protagonist feels completely disgusted. Looking outside, the young student realizes that this place has become a completely lawless zone with no police. Watching the beastly guy touch his classmate, the teenager knows she is in extreme danger around these thugs. Desperate to rescue her, he contemplates luring the nearby monsters inside to create a chaotic distraction. Looking at the older survivors, the worried teenager doubts that they can actually trust any of them. He realizes they must sneak out tonight while everyone is asleep before the thugs try to do anything to the girl. Things get extremely tense during dinner when the popular classmate accidentally insults one of the aggressive bullies. The bully orders him to deliver some grilled meat to the older men, so he adds his own share to make the plate fuller. Stepping closer to the suspicious group, the boy politely offers them the food, which unexpectedly earns him their thanks. As night falls over the city, the 2 classmates sit quietly by a burning barrel while trying to plan their next move. Suddenly, a loud voice calls out her name, which instantly makes the popular girl freeze with fear. The large guy tells them to come relax, but the girl refuses and quietly plans to escape during the night. Getting angry at her cold attitude, the older thug steps forward, but the school bully surprisingly tells him to back off. Suddenly, the situation escalates as the bad guys decide to drag the poor student toward a dangerous ledge. The 2 bullies struggle to lift his weight and start counting to 3 before throwing him off. In a desperate move, the teenager tightly grabs his attacker's jacket to make sure he does not fall alone. With a wild look, the protagonist drags the shocked bully down with him as they both plummet into the darkness. Hearing a loud crash from below, the remaining gang members realize that their friend just fell with the student. Both boys land heavily on the cold ground below while groaning in intense pain from the massive drop. Groaning in intense pain on the ground, the school bully realizes his leg is completely broken from the high fall. When the protagonist tries to walk away, the desperate bully quickly grabs his leg and blames him for the injury. Before they can argue any further, a blood-covered monster suddenly attacks the screaming bully from behind in the dark. Witnessing the brutal attack from above, the remaining thugs panic and immediately decide to abandon their companion. Taking advantage of the sudden chaos, the popular girl immediately turns around and sprints away to escape. Angry at her escape, one of the aggressive thugs quickly chases after her through the dark construction site. Even though the thug screams for her to stop, the brave girl leaps down the metal scaffolding and keeps running. The angry thug screams while the terrified girl balances on some thin wooden boards to find a way out. Looking back in panic, she hears him shouting threats as he slowly closes the distance between them. Gathering all her strength, the brave classmate leaps across a massive gap and lands safely on the opposite roof. Stumbling onto her feet, she gets shocked to see that the aggressive attacker is already right behind her. Preparing to jump, the massive guy steps on a weak structure that instantly snaps under his heavy weight. With a look of pure confusion, the bully loses his balance and crashes heavily onto the concrete below. Witnessing his terrible fall, the popular girl realizes she finally has a golden chance to escape. Standing on the roof edge, the girl starts shouting at the top of her lungs to attract the nearby monsters. The thug gets completely shocked when she points him out and screams for someone to catch the bad guy. Suddenly, several blood-covered monsters rush into the alleyway and chase after the screaming bully. While the thug runs for his life, the beautiful classmate clasps her hands and worries about her companion. Spotting the protagonist stumbling in the dark alleyway, she feels relieved and whispers for him to climb up. Grabbing the metal pipes, the exhausted student uses all of his remaining strength to reach the upper level. Reaching out with both hands, the popular classmate grabs his arm and pulls him up with all her strength. The exhausted student collapses onto the floor and explains that he avoided the bites but feels extremely dizzy. Suddenly, a loud shout from an angry thug forces the two teenagers to quickly plan their next escape route. While trying to run, the weak boy loses his balance and crashes back down onto the cold ground. Refusing to leave him behind, the brave girl supports his weight and slowly drags him down the narrow street. Terrifying screams and monster growls echo through the night as the neighborhood gets more dangerous. Deeply worried about the sounds, she holds him tight and realizes they cannot survive in the dark for long. The boy tells his companion to save herself, but she completely rejects the idea and promises to find a hiding spot. The brave girl makes a firm promise to save her companion no matter what happens next. Supporting his heavy weight, she slowly carries him through the dark alleys while avoiding any bad smells. Suddenly, she stops walking when she notices an open door leading into a quiet building. Carefully stepping inside the dark hallway, she peeks around the corners to make sure no monsters are nearby. Deciding that they need a quick break, she gently brings the exhausted boy into the empty room. The weak teenager suddenly collapses to the floor, making the girl panic and beg him to stay safe. Tears fill her eyes as she looks at her friend and softly admits that she was completely wrong about him. Yena cries and blames herself for all the terrible things that happened to her companion. Suddenly, some heavy footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway catch her attention and fill her with immense dread. She nervously looks toward the entrance as a dark shadow slowly begins to approach their hiding spot. A man holding a large axe suddenly bursts into the room but quickly stops when he realizes they are human. Looking closely at his face, the popular girl instantly recognizes him as the brave savior who helped them earlier. The man is also incredibly relieved to see that the two teenagers actually managed to stay alive. His expression quickly changes to panic when he notices the poor student lying unconscious and bleeding on the floor. Yena worries about the wounds, but the brave man tells her it is just a knife cut. Suddenly, a dark hand covers the girl's mouth as some creepy thugs laugh about finding her. The bad guys try to knock her out with a spiked bat when she starts resisting their grip. Stepping forward, the heroic savior tells the bullies that they have exactly 3 seconds to get lost. Refusing to run away, the thugs decide to eliminate the man and charge at him with their weapons. Dropping his heavy bat, the skilled fighter quickly pulls out a sharp pocket knife instead. Dodging the attack, the savior swiftly slashes his enemy and leaves him groaning on the cold floor. The angry thug grabs the popular girl and threatens to hurt her if anyone tries to make a move. Suddenly, a swift strike hits the bad guy and knocks him down, which leaves the classmate completely shocked. She is surprised to recognize their savior as her tough classmate named Kang Hakyol. Bringing them to a safe office, the quiet teenager uses some first aid supplies to treat the bleeding boy. While the patient rests on a bed, she thanks him and asks how he knows so much about medical treatment. The tough teen shifts the topic to warn her about the area and wonders what they were doing in this sector. She explains how they got captured by the school bully and how the entire place was destroyed by monsters. Wiping his blade, he mentions that the bully might still be alive and reveals that the safe zone is just a false rumor. After the system collapsed, the number of infected increased drastically and dangerous people began to roam the streets. Wiping his blade, the tough teen warns her that Northern Seoul has become a lawless zone where nobody is safe. The girl wonders why he is staying in such a dangerous place, but he quietly replies that he has his own reasons. She gets completely shocked when the boy suddenly announces his plan to travel to Gangnam tomorrow at dawn. He explains that all the main bridges leading south have already been blocked by massive shipping containers. Fleeing crowds caused a massive panic near the river, which is now completely crawling with dangerous monsters. When she asks how he got this information, he reveals that other survivors showed him photos as proof. Pointing to a lantern, the tough survivor suggests using a small boat to sneak across the water without getting caught. The girl wonders if Gangnam is truly safe, but the tough teen explains that his sister is currently waiting there. He recalls the day after the outbreak, when they went to a temporary shelter where the military soon arrived. Since they prioritized kids, the soldiers evacuated his little sister straight to the Gangnam shelter. The rescue team never returned to help the others, so the popular classmate asks about his uncle. Tears almost fall as he explains that the shelter got attacked and his uncle did not survive the escape. The tough boy packs his heavy backpack and announces he is leaving at dawn, which completely shocks his classmate. The popular classmate desperately begs the tough teen to take them along, but he refuses because it is too risky. He points at the sleeping protagonist and explains that the poor student badly needs some rest right now. Clasping her hands, she begs him again and explains that they are completely lost and need to find his mother. The tough student quietly observes her and remarks that she has changed a lot since their normal high school days. Telling her to get some rest, he promises to discuss their escape plan at dawn as she quietly whispers her thanks. Morning soon arrives over the city as the beautiful classmate slowly opens her eyes after a comfortable sleep. The tough teen suddenly asks if she saw what happened to the bully and announces his plan to go check on him. Hearing his dangerous plan, the girl frantically begs him to stay since the area is crawling with monsters. Smiling at her worry, the tough student reveals that he managed to escape North Korea when he was only 12 years old. He explains how they traveled 10,000 kilometers on foot and even lost a younger sibling during the long journey. Asking her to watch over the resting protagonist, the brave teenager exits the room and leaves her alone in silence. Moving through the empty streets, the skilled survivor easily climbs up some tall scaffolding to search for the bully. Crouching on a high rooftop with his spiked bat, the boy wonders if his enemy actually survived the terrible fall. Glancing down at a quiet hallway, the survivor carefully checks the area to see if any dangers are waiting inside. Waking up in a quiet room, the teenager slowly sits up and asks his beautiful classmate where they are. She explains that their tough classmate Hawkwolf found them and treated his painful wounds after their escape. The boy tries to recall his terrible fall with the bully, but realizes that his memory is completely blurry. Suddenly, the girl grabs his hands tightly and tearfully admits how worried she was about him dying. Looking at her beautiful face, the embarrassed student quickly blushes and wonders what to say next. Her gentle touch disappears instantly when she suddenly slaps his face and yells at him for being so reckless. She complains about carrying his heavy weight and demands that he rest for at least one full day. The teenager tries to stand up to mention the urgent military lockdown, but a sharp pain forces him back down. The popular classmate angrily orders the injured boy to stay still and stop trying to move around. A sudden knock on the door startles the two teenagers before their savior finally walks back inside. The tough student drops a black backpack onto the floor and asks the boy if the bag belongs to him. He explains that he retrieved the bag from the construction site and even saved some emergency food. The protagonist gets highly excited when the tough teen hands over his missing pair of glasses. Sitting on his bed, the teenager thanks his savior and admits that he only feels a little dizzy. The popular girl suddenly interrupts their chat to ask what happened to the school bully at the site. The brave survivor explains that the bully was gone, but all the other gang members became infected. Yena worries about running into the bully again since his motorcycle is missing. The tough survivor calmly declares that he always wins when it comes to a real battle to the death. He asks if they can follow his lead to escape the northern side of the city, but the two classmates quickly start arguing. Deciding to make a smart plan, first the tough teen pulls out a marker and stands before a whiteboard. He shows them a subway map, and the protagonist realizes they can use an underground river tunnel to cross the water. Even though the subway might be filled with monsters, he explains that the secure safety doors should keep the tunnels clear. The tough teen points out that reaching the nearest station on foot is extremely dangerous because of the massive distance. As evening falls over the quiet city, they write down some strict rules to ensure they do not take any unnecessary risks. The strong fighter begins listing his main guidelines, explaining that they must never rush during their journey. The most important rule of all is to never sacrifice your own life to save another person during a bad situation. Their savior calmly admits that even he will prioritize his own safety if things get too dangerous. Morning finally arrives as the bright sunlight fills the room and signals that it is time to leave. The tough survivor suddenly hands the protagonist a scary wooden bat covered in sharp metal nails. The student trembles with fear, while his classmate explains that the heavy weapon is meant to scare off bad people. He warns them to deliver a heavy blow straight to the head or heart when fighting the infected monsters. Leaving their safe shelter behind, the three teenagers quietly step out to begin their dangerous journey through the city. Walking past the ruined walls, the protagonist begins to wonder if it is truly right to kill the infected people. He worries that they might be charged with murder if the judicial system somehow returns after the crisis ends. Noticing his deep hesitation, their tough guide tells the nervous boy to instantly forget about those useless thoughts. The strong leader warns that a soft heart will only lead to a quick death in this brutal new world. Nodding in agreement, the beautiful girl suddenly halts her steps and urges the boys to wait for a moment. Pointing down the road, she asks to take a detour, while their companion wonders how she can tell danger is ahead. The popular classmate explains that a terrible stench gets much stronger whenever there are many monsters nearby. The tough teen gets surprised and asks if his friend can actually sense the exact location of the dangerous monsters. The protagonist explains it is just a hunch, while his classmate remembers how he was always highly sensitive to odors. Deciding to check the road ahead, their tough guide slowly sneaks around a telephone pole to inspect the quiet neighborhood. Suddenly, his eyes widen when he spots a large group of blood-covered creatures growling near some abandoned delivery trucks. Realizing the beautiful girl was completely correct, the brave teen turns back and confirms that the path is too dangerous. While looking around the alley, the young student spots something strange and tells the others to look toward a high balcony. High on the rooftop, they spot a military soldier who seems to be completely infected by the terrible disease. Moving quickly, the tough leader urges them to follow him immediately so they can find another way to cross the town safely. Stepping into a quiet hallway, their tough guide confirms there are no monsters nearby and tells them to come up. Using a pair of binoculars, the group spots 3 infected military soldiers on a distant roof and one holds a rifle. Minjin immediately panics and suggests they just leave since a loud gunshot would easily attract more dangerous beasts. The tough leader insists that they absolutely need the firearm and claims he already knows how to operate it. Yena angrily steps in and warns that trying to fight those infected creatures in a narrow space is basically a death trap. While his friends continue to argue, the boy gets distracted and remembers playing first-person shooting games in his room. Remembering his favorite shooter games, the teenager realizes they will desperately need that military weapon to survive. The tough leader decides to go for it and suggests that their beautiful classmate stay hidden inside the room. While the protagonist offers to join the mission, Hakshial demands that she stay behind to watch over their heavy bags. Stepping into the dark hallway, the boys manage to quietly slip past a blood-covered monster without making any noise. Moving up the concrete stairs, their tough guide asks the young man if he feels terrified of these infected creatures. Reaching the sunny rooftop, the teenagers carefully hide behind a cabinet to study the 3 infected military soldiers. The tough leader observes the 3 infected soldiers on the roof and says that a stealthy approach is too difficult. He asks if the teenager can use throwing knives, but the boy explains that a small blade will not stop these monsters. The strong teen suggests finishing the fight in 10 seconds, which makes his companion wonder how that is even possible. The leader plans to charge the first creature so that the student can easily sneak up and smash another with his bat. While the boy worries about failure, his companion tells him to simply stay focused and avoid getting bitten by the beasts. Noticing his hesitation, the tough student explains that survival comes first and they must do whatever it takes to live. The protagonist nods in agreement as he remembers that the infected creatures roaming the streets are no longer human. Stepping closer to the target, they ready their weapons and prepare to launch their fast and dangerous rooftop attack. The tough leader initiates the surprise attack while the loud monsters scream in rage. Charging forward with his sharp blade, the brave teen aims for a quick defeat to take down the first creature. He delivers a fast strike, expecting a quick victory, but gets surprised when the enemy resists the hit. Seeing the other threats rush toward him, the skilled fighter realizes he must quickly defeat at least one. Another quick slash is not enough, and the strong beast grabs him tight while screaming like a wild animal. Sensing the extreme danger, the tough leader shouts for his companion to finally join the chaotic battle. Raising his heavy-nailed bat, the teenager delivers a massive blow that successfully knocks the monster down. The bloodthirsty monster resists the initial blow, and Hakshial quickly realizes his basic attack is not going to work. Focusing on the main threat, he targets the zombie with the firearm and drives his pocket knife deep into its neck. They both tumble to the hard concrete, and his only blade slips out of his hands, leaving him completely unarmed. Another infected soldier rises while a different beast suddenly corners Minjin and forces him to fight for survival. Staring at the weapon, the tough fighter prays that the rifle has at least 2 bullets left so they can survive. Using his incredible speed, he grabs the gun and quickly loads a round while the heavy monsters pin him down. Meanwhile, the main protagonist struggles with all his strength to keep the rabid beast from biting his face. Struggling against the heavy monster, the terrified student screams for his friend to save him. Praising the boy for his bravery, the tough survivor quickly aims the loaded rifle with his left hand. A deafening gunshot echoes through the entire area and startles the beautiful classmate waiting downstairs. Anxiously peering through her binoculars, she gets deeply relieved to see both boys standing safely on the roof. The tough leader praises his companion for the distraction and admits it was his first time shooting left-handed. Removing the metal magazine, the skilled fighter counts only 3 bullets left inside their new weapon. Suddenly, scary growls from the street remind them that the loud gunfire is actively attracting more monsters. Desperate to find more ammo, the boys quickly search the dead soldiers before the oncoming swarm surrounds them. Yena wonders where the boys went and decides to head downstairs to wait for their return. Suddenly, loud screams echo through the air, and she spots several monsters gathering in the street below. Feeling extremely worried, she wonders how her companions will make it back to this dangerous sector. Her heart stops when a bloody creature down below suddenly looks straight up and flashes a creepy smile. Sliding down to the floor, she covers her mouth in absolute terror and wonders if the beast actually saw her. The quiet hallway becomes incredibly suffocating as terrifying growls begin to echo from the dark stairwell. Hearing a loud crash against the door, the frightened classmate trembles and realizes she is in deep trouble. The girl remembers that they closed the second-floor door and blocked the entrance before leaving. Hearing a terrifying growl nearby, she wonders how a monster could have managed to get all the way up here. Heavy footsteps echo in the dark as a blood-covered creature slowly climbs the concrete steps toward her room. She quickly hides behind some cardboard boxes and covers her mouth to keep herself from making any noise. The terrifying beast turns around and reveals a creepy smile before slowly stumbling closer to her hiding spot. Shaking with fear, the popular classmate silently cries, while hoping the creature will not notice her presence. Suddenly, the mindless monster spots her and lunges forward with a loud screech to attack the helpless girl. Yena is terrified, but her 2 classmates suddenly show up to rescue her from the dangerous monster. After returning to the safe office, the tough teen gets shocked to hear that a monster actually smiled at her. The protagonist explains how the main door block was broken as if someone did it on purpose. Their tough guide explains that the infected usually only act on aggressive instincts and should not have emotions. While filling up a water bottle, the boy suggests that the creatures might be evolving to become more intelligent. The strong leader gets suspicious and asks how his companion can possibly know such specific details. Looking away, the nervous teenager admits that this outbreak reminds him of a video game he used to play. Although the idea of being stuck inside a game sounds ridiculous, the group silently processes his strange theory. Declaring this the worst outbreak in history, the tough teen explains that they can only get infected through a bite. Looking over their limited weapons, the strong leader hands one of the 2 tactical knives to the young student. He then offers the second blade to the popular girl and warns that she must learn to defend herself from now on. The brave leader even offers to teach them how to use the rifle in case something terrible happens to him later. His companions fall silent before the protagonist complains that talking about death is a classic movie curse. Ignoring the joke, their guide promises to do anything to survive while the boy laments having limited bullets. Turning to his quiet classmate, the teenager asks if she wants to try the weapon, but she simply looks away in doubt. The beautiful girl suddenly demands that the protagonist keep his distance, which leaves him feeling completely confused. She looks away in frustration while secretly complaining that her classmate is acting exactly like he did in school. Hugging her knees on the couch, the popular girl worries that she might smell bad because she has not showered in days. The popular classmate gets annoyed with her own thoughts as she wonders why she even cares about his opinion. Morning arrives as the group of 3 teenagers quietly begins navigating through the blood-stained streets of the city. Using her keen sense of smell, the girl helps lead the boys through the alleys while pointing out potential dangers. Their tough guide praises her useful ability and advises everyone to remain fully alert during their journey. While walking down the street, Minjin notices that their tough guide is limping after his wild fight with the soldier. Shocked to hear about a twisted ligament, the teenager immediately urges his companion to take a quick rest. Dismissing the injury as nothing compared to his past escape, the leader halts when the girl spots a closed metal gate. A loud crash against the shutter startles the group before a voice from above suddenly calls out to them. Looking up, they see a trapped man who explains he got chased by monsters, and another survivor locked the stairs. When their guide asks about the number of enemies, the man reveals that around 6 or 7 monsters are blocking his way. Remembering his own strict rule, the tough leader calmly apologizes and tells the stranger that they cannot help him. The tough leader prepares to leave, while the trapped man desperately begs for help to reach his family. Their guide warns the stranger to stop shouting and insists that they must avoid any unnecessary risks. Feeling highly conflicted, the young student suddenly stops his companions and wonders if there is a way to help. After a heavy sigh, the strong leader turns around to ask what his friend actually suggests they do. The teenager confidently announces that he has a smart plan to safely rescue the trapped survivor. Walking down the street, the three companions stop near a white van parked inside a narrow underpass. He plans to block the tunnel by pushing the heavy vehicle, and recalls practicing this with his father. The teenager offers to lure the monsters away since his friend is hurt, but his companions worry if he can run fast enough. Examining the narrow tunnel, they find a bloody white van that has its handbrake released and can easily block the path. Despite the perfect setup, the tough leader hesitates and asks why they should even risk their lives for a total stranger. Yena quickly agrees with the warning and suggests that the trapped survivor might actually be a bad person. Looking down, the young student suddenly remembers his past and thinks about the poor workers who used to help his father. The boy explains that the trapped man does not seem bad and deeply reminds him of his own hardworking dad. Hearing his emotional reasoning, the tough fighter silently looks at him while processing the heavy words. Under the cloudy sky, the teenagers gather around the white van and prepare to push it into the narrow underpass. Summoning all their remaining strength, they slowly roll the vehicle forward until it completely blocks the dark path. Their tough guide prepares to hide for cover and warns the boy to only use the rifle in a real emergency. The popular girl worries about hidden monsters, so the young student suggests luring them out with a loud noise. Looking directly at his friend, the strong leader reminds him that this rescue plan is still extremely risky. The nervous teenager fears facing special mutated monsters but remains hopeful that everything will turn out fine. Holding his weapon, the tough survivor declares that this is the absolute last time they take unnecessary risks. Sweat drips from his face as the brave teenager agrees to lure the dangerous monsters away. Stepping into a dark building, the protagonist starts shouting loudly before sprinting out to initiate the chase. Running for his life, the young student leads a large group of bloodthirsty creatures down the narrow streets. Bolting past the parked van, he successfully draws the entire pack away while his companions watch from their cover. Waiting for the perfect moment, the tough guide signals his classmate to quickly move forward and block the path. Leaning against the vehicle, the popular girl listens to her racing heart and silently prays for his safe return. Growling sounds echo from the dark alley as the protagonist suddenly runs around the corner to lure the beasts. The running teenager screams for his friends to push the heavy vehicle and completely block the path. The white van slams against the metal pole and successfully locks the furious creatures inside the tunnel. Letting out a heavy sigh of relief, the young man gets surprised when a voice suddenly thanks him. The rescued survivor falls to his knees and repeatedly bows to thank the teenagers for saving his life. Standing nearby, the tough leader calmly suggests moving to a secure location before more monsters arrive. Resting inside a closed street tent, they inspect a pile of gas canisters and discuss how they managed to get power. The man shows off his massive food supply and explains that he risks his life every day searching for his daughter. The teenager notices how polite the stranger is and immediately realizes that this survivor is truly a kind person. He explains that he left his family to find his daughter, but got trapped in the chaos and barely managed to survive. Looking at their powerful weapon, the man wonders where the young group managed to find a military rifle. Since night is quickly falling, the generous stranger offers to let the three teenagers spend the night at his house. Their tough leader accepts the kind invitation, which makes the young student wonder if they can really trust him. Walking through the quiet neighborhood, they finally arrive at the building and prepare to step inside. Arriving at the detached house, the teenagers notice that the strong walls and solar panels make it a perfect refuge. Before stepping inside, the tough leader suddenly reloads his rifle to prepare for any unexpected danger. The rescued survivor nervously tells the group that his friends inside are harmless and they do not need to worry. Entering the dark office building, the man loudly calls out for his family while the teenagers inspect the quiet rooms. Suddenly, a loud banging noise shakes the door before a blood-covered foot violently kicks the entrance wide open. A dangerous stranger holding a bloody kitchen knife bursts inside while complaining about almost dying on the streets. The crazy killer mutters that he has killed more humans than monsters and wishes a bomb would just destroy the entire area. Looking around the dark office, the exhausted intruder decides to sit down and rest in the cozy room. Looking at the whiteboard, the creepy intruder smiles as he notices the survival plans left behind by the students. He realizes they were hiding there recently and wonders if they will try to cross the river using the 5th subway line. Meanwhile, the rescued survivor happily rushes toward his home while shouting to let his family know he is finally back. The tough leader quickly stops his companion and announces his decision to step inside the dark house first. As the man calls out for his wife, the cautious teen sneaks inside with his rifle ready to take the house by force. A wave of relief washes over them when they witness the emotional man tightly hugging his crying wife and young son. Feeling a bit awkward, the young teenagers stand in silence before the grateful family warmly thanks them for their help. The friendly mother welcomes them warmly and happily offers to prepare some delicious food for the tired teenagers. Hearing that they can actually take a hot shower makes the popular classmate feel extremely relieved after her long trip. The housewife holds her hands tightly and praises her gorgeous looks by saying she looks exactly like a famous star. Her happy expression fades as she sadly explains that her college student daughter went missing during the outbreak. Hoping to comfort the sad mother, the beautiful girl gently reassures her that the missing daughter is probably fine. The grateful woman thanks her and insists on cooking before offering to lend the girl some clean outfits to wear. Suddenly, a small child briefly peeks around a wooden cabinet before quickly running away to hide in a dark corner. Watching the shy boy escape, the young student realizes that this must be the elementary school son of the family. Sitting on the sofa, the tough student reveals his heavily swollen ankle after their intense fights. Deciding to rest, they agree to secure the house while the protagonist admires his companion for never letting his guard down. Meanwhile, the popular girl enjoys a warm shower and feels incredibly relieved to finally wash away all the dirt. Under the running water, she recalls his brave distraction and admits that her quiet classmate actually has some real guts. As evening arrives, the grateful family prepares a delicious hot meal for the group to enjoy after days of starving. During dinner, the father asks how they plan to reach the southern district since all the main roads are completely blocked. Their tough leader reveals they plan to use the underground subway line 5 tunnel, which completely shocks the man. The father introduces himself as Seo Jae-hoon, a 50-year-old professor, and reveals his daughter was last seen at line 5. The tough student realizes that this station is their final destination near the river, which is only 7 stops away. Nodding in agreement, the man hopes his missing daughter is still alive, since they also plan to use that exact subway. Traveling by car became impossible after he got stranded in traffic and found the station completely overrun by monsters. After hearing the story, the tough guide asks about the road conditions and learns that most streets are blocked by debris. Hearing about the blocked streets makes the group leader realize that driving a vehicle is definitely out of the question. To break the heavy tension, the friendly professor laughs and suggests that everyone should formally introduce themselves. Night soon falls over the quiet neighborhood while the survivors prepare to rest inside their temporary sanctuary. The kind mother shows the teenagers the bedrooms and suggests that they split up to get some comfortable sleep. Wanting to stay close to the boys, the beautiful classmate nervously declines the private room to sleep in the living room. When the protagonist teases her about being scared to sleep alone, she gets embarrassed and quickly punches him in the chest. The girl angrily mutters that he is extremely annoying while the confused teenager wonders what he did wrong this time. As night falls over the quiet neighborhood, the survivors finally turn off the lights and wish each other a peaceful night. Sitting on the sofa with his loaded rifle, the tough leader keeps watch to make sure that they stay completely safe. Time passes slowly in the dark living room as the exhausted teenagers finally fall asleep after their long and tiring journey. Lying awake in the dark room, the beautiful girl notices that their tough guide is already fast asleep. Sitting up quietly, she looks at her classmate and suggests having a quick chat since they are both wide awake. Staring at the ceiling, the protagonist admits that he is currently feeling extremely worried about his missing mother. Feeling deeply sympathetic, the popular girl promises that she will help him search for his mother no matter what. Looking back at her, the touched teenager softly whispers his thanks for her incredibly kind words. Sitting up to face his companion, the young student admits he is curious about her own parents. The boy gently asks if she is truly fine since they are her only family, which makes the girl fall completely silent. Yena decides to open up to him and mentions that she has never shared her family secret with anyone before. She explains that her household is actually a blended family and calls them a complete mess. The teenager reveals that her elite parents divorced early, which forced her to live with a stepmother. A quick look into her past reveals the hidden struggles behind her wealthy life in the luxury apartment tower. Back in their school days, she got extremely annoyed when the quiet student completely ignored her in the streets. Considering him weak, she even thought about asking the school bully to teach him a lesson the very next day. Arriving at her expensive home, she realized that she had no right to look down on his miserable life. The popular girl admits that she absolutely hated going home and only wanted to change her clothes quickly. Stepping inside, she got shocked to find messy shoes on the floor along with some very weird noises from the room. Hearing strange noises as she enters her home, the popular girl remembers how her stepmother always cheated on her father. The angry stepmother suddenly confronts the teenager for coming home early and demands that she ring the doorbell next time. She boldly mocks her stepmother for having affairs, which instantly sparks a massive shouting match between the two women. The secret lover suddenly steps out of the bedroom while the mean stepmother refers to the girl as her husband's spawn. Pulling out her phone, the popular classmate snaps a picture of them and playfully threatens to send the photo to her dad. The 36-year-old stepmother Choi Soo-jin is a former actress turned influencer who calmly tells the girl to go ahead. The evil woman brags that a divorce would completely ruin his wealth and destroy his hospital since she has massive leverage. The evil stepmother laughs and dares the girl to tell her father because she does not care about a divorce. Bumping past the cheating couple, the angry teenager insults them and walks out while the woman screams in rage. Slamming the front door, she steps onto the street and promises herself to never return to her luxury apartment. The young girl has no idea that the entire world is scheduled to end on the very next day. While hanging out at a local karaoke room, she gets surprised when her friend suddenly leaves due to a family emergency. Walking alone down the busy street, the beautiful girl notices that her phone is blowing up with weird emergency alerts. Sudden screaming echoes through the air as terrified crowds of people begin running for their lives down the road. Catching her breath on the cold emergency stairs, the terrified girl feels glad that she managed to escape the chaos. Stepping inside a quiet room, she tries to call her father for help, but gets no response from his phone. Remembering that her mother is currently far away in America, she realizes she is completely on her own. Having no other choice, she decides to dial the number of her hated stepmother as a last resort. The woman answers with irritation, so the desperate girl quickly begs for a rescue because she is trapped. Her cruel stepmother simply tells her to figure it out alone and hangs up the phone to save herself. Staring at her disconnected screen, the popular classmate realizes she has been completely abandoned. Suddenly, loud banging sounds shake the messy room as some desperate voices demand that she open the door. Crying alone inside a dark room, the popular girl remembers how much she desperately missed her mother. Returning to the present, the girl admits that her parents basically abandoned her, and she no longer cares about them. She sadly explains that her mother is in America and she deeply regrets ignoring her phone calls in the past. The young student finally understands why she was so desperate to study abroad before this nightmare started. Looking downcast, the beautiful girl complains that she has absolutely nobody left to care about her in this world. Gently breaking the silence, the boy tells her to stop talking like that because she is definitely not alone anymore. He reassures his classmate that they will survive this outbreak together alongside their tough new companion. After finishing their late-night talk, the two classmates decide it is finally time to get some rest. Outside, the monsters continue to roam the streets as the night slowly passes and morning finally arrives. While sleeping with his rifle, the tough survivor starts having a terrible nightmare about his childhood. He remembers the cruel guard who beat him and mocked his family after his uncle escaped to South Korea. The tough student suddenly snaps awake when the loud sound of a car engine echoes from the street. The professor also runs out in panic and asks about the noise, so the young man decides to investigate. Holding his loaded rifle, the brave leader sneaks outside while worrying that the noise will attract monsters. Hearing a strange noise, the tough survivor grabs a metal ladder and quickly climbs up the wall to check outside. Reaching the top of the gate, he prepares his rifle, but gets shocked when he spots two strangers standing below. The two men talk about searching the neighborhood for survivors, while one of them holds a dangerous handgun. Hakshiol immediately points his rifle at them and demands that they drop their weapons within 3 seconds. The terrified man slowly drops his gun, while the young leader wonders where the strangers managed to find it. The brave teen asks if they are looters, while the frightened survivors raise their hands to show they mean no harm. They claim they thought the house was empty, but the cautious leader demands to know where they obtained their firearm. One of the strangers claims they found the pistol on a corpse, but the suspicious leader immediately accuses him of lying. The frightened men explain that they are just normal citizens who got separated from the safety shelter at Gunja Station. The young leader realizes this subway station is on Line 5, and the stranger confirms it is a massive survival camp. After hearing that the surrounding area is crawling with monsters, the tough guide demands to know more details. He asks if they have seen a young woman named Seo Hakyoung and invites them inside on the condition that they disarm. Inside the house, the professor gets completely shocked when he hears about the existence of the Gunja Station shelter. The strangers reveal that hundreds of survivors are there, and they begin discussing the professor's missing daughter. Jaehoon recalls the tragic phone call with his daughter at 8:10 in the evening when the subway was attacked. While the father worries about Gwangnaru Station, the stranger reveals that he actually boarded the exact same train. The man explains how the train bypassed the normal stops and ended up at Gunja Station where his daughter might be. Jaehoon desperately shows them a photo of his daughter on a phone, but the men cannot be completely certain of her face. With hundreds of passengers on board, they warn that the girl could already be infected or trapped inside the shelter. The stranger invites the group to travel together since armed guards at the station are actively shooting any outsiders. Noting their large group size, Hakchiol suggests setting up a rendezvous point halfway instead of traveling together. The man hands over a walkie-talkie for communication and requests 2 days of food supplies in return for his help. Hoping to earn some trust, the stranger looks at the quiet leader who continues to stare back in silence. Inside the safe house, the group discusses the plan to meet the strangers and travel to the subway shelter. The tough leader explains that traveling together on foot is basically impossible for a large family. He suggests finding a 6-seat vehicle instead, but warns that he will only protect himself if danger strikes. This cold warning leaves the professor and his worried wife in deep silence while they process his words. While gathering some extra supplies from the kitchen fridge, the beautiful girl suddenly wonders where her friend went. Walking up the wooden stairs, the popular classmate decides to look around the house to locate the boy. Peeking into the bedroom, she finds the protagonist chatting with the young boy about their favorite video games. Stepping inside the room, the popular girl teases them about getting so close while they talk about gamer stuff. The young boy gets called away by his mother, leaving the two classmates alone near a large poster of a famous idol group. Noticing his intense gaze, the beautiful girl playfully asks if the gorgeous blonde idol named Jian is his ideal type. The quiet student surprises her by calmly revealing that he actually knew the famous star personally when they were younger. Hearing his ridiculous claim, the popular girl bursts into loud laughter and demands to see her contact info as proof. Sweat drips down his face as he explains that they lost touch years ago after she moved away to join the entertainment world. The teenager quickly backs down from his story and claims he was only joking as he walks out of the bedroom. Left alone in the room, the popular girl stares at the idol poster and doubts he could ever know someone that gorgeous. Meanwhile, the professor approaches the tough student to announce that his family is officially ready to leave the house. The father explains they want to reach the subway shelter and asks if there is a suitable vehicle they can use to escape. He mentions that their family car is trapped but suggests retrieving a large ambulance parked 1 kilometer away. This special emergency vehicle has enough room for 6 people, but several infected creatures are trapped inside. The professor confirms he saw the monsters in the seats 3 days ago and believes they are still there. The tough student agrees that they can handle the 3 monsters inside the vehicle with the professor's help. Morning arrives and all of their heavy backpacks are fully packed and ready for the dangerous journey. Minjin suggests making some homemade firebombs and his tough friend agrees that it is an excellent idea. As night falls over the quiet neighborhood, the survivors try to get some rest before their big escape. The walkie-talkie suddenly buzzes as the stranger asks if they found a vehicle for their escape. Hakchiol explains that he plans to check on a parked ambulance first thing in the morning. Outside in the foggy darkness, several bloodthirsty monsters gather around the yellow emergency vehicle. The stranger on the walkie-talkie wishes them good luck before cutting the radio connection. While night falls over the quiet sanctuary, the beautiful girl sleeps deeply under her warm blankets. In her dream, she wakes up at a school desk and feels relieved, thinking the entire zombie outbreak was just a nightmare. Looking around the empty classroom, she notices the clock and worries about being extremely late for her academy classes. Running out into the quiet school hallway, the popular classmate accidentally bumps directly into another student. The girl gets completely shocked when she recognizes her quiet companion and asks why he has not gone home yet. He stares at her coldly as she demands to know why he is glaring. Suddenly, the quiet student grabs her wrists and pins her against the school wall, which completely shocks her. Staring deeply into her eyes, he calls her out for always treating him like a complete bug at school. The boy delivers a terrifying warning that he will actually hit her if she dares to call him a loser again. Back in reality, the popular girl whimpers in her sleep while slowly waking up from the terrifying nightmare. Slowly opening her eyes, the girl gets completely shocked to find herself tightly hugging her sleeping classmate. Panicking in silence, she quickly pulls away and angrily wonders if the boy is actually just pretending to sleep. While their tough guide continues to sleep soundly on the sofa, the girl turns back to look at her companion. Staring at his face, she recalls how she always hated his cheap basement smell back during their school days. Leaning close to sniff his neck, she gets surprised to realize that he actually has a very nice body scent now. Looking at his face without glasses, the popular girl wonders if the apocalypse is starting to mess with her mind. Suddenly opening his eyes, the young man gets surprised to find his popular classmate leaning extremely close to his face. Realizing she got caught, the embarrassed girl screams in panic and delivers a powerful punch straight to his face. The loud commotion instantly wakes up their tough companion, who points his loaded rifle to check for threats. Holding her blanket tight, the blushing girl quickly makes some excuses and denies that she was doing anything weird. Still feeling extremely frustrated, she complains about his attitude and violently kicks the poor student to the ground. Rubbing his sore face, the teenager wonders if he accidentally cursed at her or talked in his sleep during the night. Morning finally arrives over the city as their tough leader gathers everyone to explain the plan for securing the vehicle. Before leaving the safe house, the tough leader orders Minjin to climb up to the roof and keep watch of the area. Thick fog quickly rolls over the quiet streets, leaving the entire neighborhood completely hidden from sight. Peering through his binoculars, the young student tries to scan the dark roads but fails to spot his companions. While sitting on the balcony, the beautiful classmate worries because the group has been gone for over 1 hour. Suddenly, several loud gunshots echo through the foggy air and instantly startle the two waiting teenagers. The boy notes that the loud firing sound is completely different from the rifle that their savior is carrying. A look of pure horror fills her eyes as they wonder if the dangerous visitors from yesterday are behind the shooting. Yenna suddenly gasps as a nauseating smell fills the air and she alerts her companion. The young man senses trouble when a desperate voice suddenly screams from the street, demanding to open the gate. Looking through his binoculars, the teenager spots one of the strangers from yesterday, running frantically through the fog. The girl quickly recognizes the visitor and wonders what happened to his vehicle and his missing partner. Huffing and puffing, the terrified survivor reaches their front gate and begins pounding on it with his handgun. Peeking down from the balcony, the boy asks about the second man, only to hear that he was violently killed. Trembling with absolute terror, the stranger warns them that a monster is coming and shooting it with guns is useless. Minjin peers through his binoculars and instantly freezes in complete shock at what he sees. A massive bloody monster stumbles through the fog while mumbling creepy words about wanting social media followers. The protagonist remembers playing his favorite video game where a giant boss monster looked exactly like this beast. It is the infected bully Bongyu who is now wandering the foggy streets and calling out for his popular classmate. The scary realization confirms that the rules of his video game are actually happening in the real world now. Meanwhile, a few minutes earlier, the tough leader and the professor arrived at the foggy street to claim their vehicle. Their plans are cut short when multiple loud gunshots suddenly echo through the dense fog and startle the two survivors. Hearing a static noise from his radio, the tough leader gets warned about active gunshots coming from their location. Meanwhile, a frantic survivor runs up to the front gate and desperately begs the teenagers to let him inside. The young man quickly opens the door, but his eyes widen when a bloodthirsty monster suddenly grabs the poor stranger. The poor man gets violently dragged down to the ground while the walkie-talkie warns them about incoming enemies. Looking out into the thick fog, the beautiful girl gets completely petrified after spotting a gigantic creature. The massive infected bully slowly stumbles forward while muttering that he finally found the popular girl. Overwhelmed by extreme terror, the frightened teen collapses onto the hard ground as the giant monster approaches. The terrifying beast violently throws its massive body against the main entrance in a desperate attempt to break in. Heavy banging shakes the main gate while the popular girl trembles on the floor and wonders what is outside. The protagonist realizes the giant monster is actually the infected bully who is now loudly calling out her name. Sweating with fear, he tells his companion that they must run since even their rifle might not stop this giant beast. Suddenly, the heavy metal gate begins to bend violently under the relentless attacks of the monstrous creature. Hearing the terrifying commotion, the friendly mother runs outside, but the boy quickly tells her to hide upstairs. Looking around in panic, the young student suddenly remembers their leftover gasoline and thinks of fire. Grabbing his trembling classmate by the arm, the teenager desperately begs her to help him with a risky plan. Ordering her to get a grip, he details his plan of using homemade firebombs and pouring gasoline on the monster. The teenager explains that they will split their 8 firebombs, and the nervous girl quickly agrees to the plan. After urging the family to run upstairs, the brave boy grabs the homemade weapons to prepare for the fight. Knowing that the loud noise will attract more monsters, he decides to use their natural weakness against them. Running forward, the young man throws a burning bottle and creates a massive explosion right at the main entrance. The metal gate suddenly bends as a massive burning creature steps through the flames to enter the yard. The gigantic infected bully slowly stumbles forward while creepily repeating the beautiful girl's name. Standing on the balcony, the popular classmate dumps a huge container of gasoline directly onto the giant monster. Seizing his chance, the brave protagonist launches another burning bottle straight at his gasoline-covered head. The bottle explodes and immediately engulfs the massive zombie in bright flames. Minjin urges the girls to keep throwing weapons, but another fast monster suddenly bursts through the fire. Sweating heavily, the boy realizes they are running out of bombs while the popular girl throws her very last bottle. Before the teenager can react, a flaming creature suddenly lunges forward and grabs him by the neck. Witnessing the sudden attack, his classmate screams in absolute terror and hesitates to throw her remaining weapon. Multiple bloodthirsty monsters quickly surround the yard as the poor student struggles on the hard ground. Looking up at the balcony, the brave boy desperately screams for the girl to stay hidden and save herself. Suddenly, the other beasts pile on top of him, leaving the young student completely overwhelmed in the dark courtyard. A sudden gunshot rings out as the helpless student lies defeated on the blood-stained ground. Their tough guide suddenly arrives with his rifle and shouts for his injured friend to stand up immediately. Grabbing his companion by the arm, the strong leader pulls him up while the giant flaming beast finally collapses. The survivors quickly run toward the street while more bloodthirsty creatures begin chasing them down the alley. Standing near the vehicle, the brave survivor fires his weapon to eliminate a nearby threat and buy some time. Jumping inside the ambulance, the tough teen realizes he just used his very last bullet to secure their escape. The professor hits the gas and drives the heavy vehicle away, leaving the furious horde behind in the dust. Stepping on the gas, the professor drives the ambulance away while watching the blazing fire in his side mirror. Tears fill his eyes as the man realizes his beloved home is completely destroyed by the raging flames. Thick fog covers the ruined streets while their new transport slowly navigates through the empty city. Sitting in silence inside the vehicle, the exhausted group tries to process the chaotic events of the day. Looking down with a heavy heart, the young student begins to remember a painful memory from the past. In his memory, a desperate survivor frantically banged on a green door begging for a quick rescue. The poor man was grabbed by a monster right before his eyes, leaving him completely traumatized by the event. Minjin feels a sharp pain in his side and Yena advises him to get his stitches checked. Meanwhile, the ambulance slowly drives through the foggy streets as they head toward their next destination. Inside the vehicle, the boys discuss their route and decide to wait at the designated meetup point. Suddenly, the professor spots the bright sign of the Sky Motel and pulls the heavy vehicle into the dark parking lot. Stepping inside the creepy hallway, the group discusses which rooms are safe to use for the night. Looking at a bloody mark on door number 209, the young guide warns them to stay away from the upper levels. Inside one of the safe rooms, the beautiful classmate nervously admits that she is too terrified to sleep alone. Standing alone in the dark bathroom, the young student realizes that the pain in his side is getting much worse. Slowly peeling back his medical bandage, the teenager looks down and freezes in complete shock. Staring at the dark stitches in the mirror, he begins to panic because it looks exactly like a zombie infection. The worried boy wonders when it happened since he cannot find any single bite mark on his trembling body. He recalls his fall at the construction site, but knows he would have turned already if he got infected back then. Remembering his fight with the flaming monsters, he realizes his thick clothes protected his stomach wound from contact. Even though their tough guide claimed that only direct bites spread the virus, he wonders if that theory was wrong. A sudden wave of intense dizziness hits the teenager as he desperately tries to convince himself it is just a normal wound. Minjin collapses onto the floor in complete shock as he slowly accepts that he has actually been infected by the virus. Meanwhile, the popular classmate sits outside waiting by a candle and grows increasingly anxious after 30 minutes pass by. The bathroom door suddenly cracks open, and the frustrated girl demands to know what took him so long in the darkness. Looking extremely pale, the teenager requests to spend the night in a separate room, which catches his companions off guard. He insists on sleeping alone, leaving the beautiful girl to worry about sharing a room with their quiet companion. When the sick boy grabs his heavy backpack to leave, the girl playfully assumes that he is just feeling awkward around her. Staring back with an incredibly serious expression, the young man begs her to stop joking, which leaves her completely stunned. The survivors decide on their sleeping arrangements, so the beautiful classmate can safely share a room with the mother. Minjin quietly opens the door to room number 202 to spend the night completely isolated from the others. Closing the door behind him, the infected teenager looks around the messy space and slowly collapses onto the cold floor. Holding his painful stomach, the boy looks at the trash around him and realizes he has no happy ending waiting for him. Staring into the darkness, the young student accepts that he is just an ordinary extra who is destined to fade away. Burying his face in his knees, the crying teenager quietly prepares to face his tragic end inside the dark room. Outside the quiet building, dangerous monsters continue to roar through the thick fog as night falls over the city. Morning arrives at the motel, and the popular classmate immediately heads over to check on the sick boy. Their tough guide steps up to turn the doorknob, only to realize that the entrance is completely locked. The strong survivor gets highly serious and quietly suggests that their companion has been infected. This terrifying idea completely shocks the beautiful girl who frantically tries to deny the possibility. Their guide calmly explains that the poor student might have already stopped breathing inside his room. Furious and terrified, she begins pounding on the wooden door while demanding that he stop messing around. The desperate girl suddenly stops and stares at the silent door with immense dread filling her chest. Standing outside room 202, the popular girl frantically bangs on the wooden door while screaming his name. Suddenly, the door handle begins to slowly turn and she stares in absolute shock as the entrance creaks open. The sick teenager stands there, looking incredibly pale, and confesses to his friends that something is wrong with his body. Meanwhile, a sudden flashback takes us 18 years into the past to a quiet neighborhood inside Pennsylvania. Two young schoolboys stand near a heavily fortified fence that belongs to a man who believes the world is about to end. While one friend warns about the danger of getting shot, the other boy feels highly curious about the crazy homeowner. Deciding to head home first, the friend runs away while the curious kid stays behind to stare at the mysterious house. Peeking at the blood-stained gate, the young boy hears a voice demanding to know who is there while warning of zombies. Confused by the bizarre messages on the wall, the kid explains that he was simply speaking in his native language. Hearing a question about his parents, the child mentions that he has been living with his uncle's family for a year. Speaking quietly, the young boy reveals that his parents passed away and he was sent to America with his twin sibling. Although the warnings about monsters sound completely crazy, the boy wonders if this is some kind of roleplay game. He admits to running from those same creatures, and the man quickly asks if he has been bitten by any of them. Suddenly, a loud mechanical whirring sound echoes through the air as the heavy metal gate slowly begins to rise. A bearded man holding a powerful gun appears at the entrance and urgently commands the shocked kid to get inside. The massive metal gate finishes rising and reveals a large suburban home that looks like a heavily protected fortress. Walking inside, the young guest notices an entirely messy living room filled with half-eaten food and empty cans. The bearded homeowner carrying a heavy firearm casually explains his dark theory about the end of the world. He believes that when hell eventually gets completely full of sinners, the rejected souls are forced to wander the earth. This crazy explanation leaves the kid totally speechless while the man warns him to prepare for the worst. Smiling slightly, the eccentric prepper then promises to show the shocked guest something absolutely incredible. They enter a secret basement stocked with massive amounts of canned food and racks of dangerous military weapons. Turning on the lights, the man welcomes his young visitor to the ultimate shelter that is built to survive any apocalypse. Looking around the basement, the young boy gets shocked to see a massive armored vehicle designed to survive the end of the world. 18 years later in Seoul, the survivors gather inside room 202 while the tough teen aims his gun at the sick boy. The popular girl questions his dangerous action, and the leader warns that their sick friend could snap at any moment. Looking closely at his face, the professor confirms that a fever of 42 degrees is impossible for a normal wound. Lying on the bed, the poor student struggles to understand how he got infected since the pain started from his knife wound. His classmate asks about the virus incubation period, and the professor explains that it usually takes less than a day. The tough guide suspects that infected fluid got onto the knife, meaning the boy was already sick before getting treatment. Hearing this, the girl is completely shocked, while the professor wonders what will happen if their friend survives tomorrow. Looking at the sick boy, their tough guide suddenly wonders if he might actually be immune to the terrible virus. Minjin gets shocked by his words and starts to hope that he might actually survive the infection. While monsters roar throughout the dark night, morning eventually arrives over the quiet sanctuary. Sleeping soundly under his warm blankets, the teenager slowly recovers from his intense fever. Sitting nearby, the popular classmate gets highly relieved when she notices that the boy is finally awake. The young student asks how long he was asleep and learns that he has been resting since yesterday. He wonders if she is terrified to sit next to him while she quietly stares back with a serious look. The popular girl playfully mocks her companion but gets flustered when he praises her incredible bravery. She stutters while trying to explain herself, and the boy simply smiles while offering his sincere gratitude. The beautiful classmate confesses that he seems like a totally different person and admits she relies on him. Looking around the messy room of the Sky Motel, the teenager feels glad that his terrible fever is finally gone. Gathering together, the group discusses how the terrifying monsters behave exactly like characters from a game. Their tough guide wonders if a company created the virus, while the teenager tries to remember the creator's name. Suddenly, the professor's 12-year-old son Hajun walks in and mentions the famous developer named Daniel Jin. The little boy explains that this genius developer created a famous zombie game and later invested heavily in biotech. Minjin realizes that the connection between a zombie game and medical research matches their current crisis perfectly. While the popular girl wonders about the motive of the company, the protagonist remains completely silent and deep in thought. The scene shifts to a quiet interrogation room where a 29-year-old man named Daniel Jin sits before some agents. An official lists how Daniel and his twin brother Elliot were bullied before their mother tragically ended her own life. After their father also passed away, the twin brothers went to America only to get betrayed by their greedy uncle and aunt. Despite his tragic past, Daniel managed to build a massive empire and now demands that the group travels to Korea immediately. One of the agents looks at him and wonders if his painful past drove him to unleash this nightmare upon his own country. Inside a secure facility, Daniel Jin gets questioned about spreading the virus, but he denies it and points to his brother. The veteran commander Aiden Brooks asks about the missing brother since Daniel actually bought his research lab. The officer points out that Daniel made huge profits from the outbreak, which makes him look incredibly guilty. Looking away, Daniel reveals his brother Elliot always held a deep grudge and said that Koreans deserve to go to hell. Although the agent finds it hard to believe, Daniel argues they must act fast to stop the spreading disaster. Hearing that a dangerous virus sample is already heading to America, the young creator demands to head to Korea himself. The other agents confirm that they still have absolutely no updates on the missing brother's location. The tactical officer Morris Blake agrees that the story makes sense and confirms the brother is their main suspect. A new agent named Camila Rosa joins the conversation and promises that they will handle capturing the missing brother. Daniel agrees to travel with them under custody because he knows his brother will eventually come straight to him. The young creator declares that nobody knows his sibling better and claims he is the only one who can save humanity. The story shifts back to 2 days ago when their tough classmate Hakshial went out searching for a working vehicle. Riding a scooter through the heavy fog, the teenager plans his route and hopes his friends are heading to the station. His ride gets interrupted when a blood-covered monster suddenly blocks his path and forces him to brake quickly. Stepping off his vehicle, the brave student pulls out a sharp kitchen knife and delivers a powerful strike to the beast. Driving his blade into the monster, the tough teenager realizes that fighting these mindless beasts is getting pretty boring. Sudden loud gunshots echo through the foggy air and make him wonder if the military is actively fighting nearby. Holding his bloodstained knife, he decides to go check out the noise since a firearm would be an incredibly useful weapon. Riding his scooter past abandoned cars, the boy counts more than 10 shots and realizes the fight is happening very close. A sudden shout from a nearby rooftop makes him stop his scooter to see another survivor warning him about a massive swarm. The injured man wears a camo jacket and begs for help, but the cautious teenager only stares back in complete silence. His eyes quickly trace a trail of fresh blood leading straight into a dark and highly suspicious doorway. Inside the quiet room, the tattooed youth listens carefully as the injured survivor talks about the nearby Sky Motel. Looking down at his bleeding leg, the man explains how he managed to escape the monsters while his team fled in an ambulance. The tattooed youth promises to help before learning that the strange survivors are actually just normal high school kids. Shocked by the news, the young man asks if the group includes a North Korean defector and a tall girl with long hair. Recalling the encounter, the injured survivor mentions seeing a middle-aged man alongside another teenager who wore glasses. Hearing the name of Kang Hakchiol, the wounded survivor confirms that his teammate spoke to someone with that exact name. The tattooed teen suddenly shouts the names of his best friends and smiles happily after realizing they are still alive. The injured survivor gets completely shocked when he hears his friends are still alive and begs the tattooed boy for help. Hearing about the nearby motel makes the creepy youth smile as he realizes he just hit the ultimate jackpot. Without warning, the heartless boy grabs the man's backpack and decides to steal all of his remaining supplies. The cruel thief openly mocks the injured survivor and refuses to help someone he considers a useless cripple. Smiling wickedly, the evil teenager pulls out his weapon and completely silences the poor man to take his things. Outside the bloody house, the teenager gets highly frustrated when his scooter battery suddenly dies. Walking through the quiet streets, the tattooed thief tries to remember the exact location of the motel. 2 days quickly pass and the scene returns to the Sky Motel where the survivors are currently hiding. Sitting inside the bedroom, the teenagers discuss his strange immunity and wonder if they can find a doctor to confirm it. The tough leader points out that the special handgun they saw is highly unusual and does not belong in the country. The boy suggests it might have come from a local shooting range, but he still feels like something is very wrong. Since the weather has cleared up, they decide it is finally time to gather the family and continue their journey. While planning a route of 5 kilometers to the subway station, the protagonist asks to join the scouting party. The beautiful girl gets completely shocked and demands that he stay inside so he does not collapse again. Seeing his determination, she gets flustered and announces that she will just tag along to keep him safe. The tough leader teases the girl for sticking so close to her classmate, which makes her scream in embarrassment. In her extreme confusion, she suddenly hits the poor boy and tells him to drop dead if he wants to. Instead of staying behind, the two boys actually exit the bedroom, leaving the beautiful girl completely furious. Meanwhile, a pair of blood-stained shoes slowly walks toward the motel under the bright morning sky. The tattooed thief spots the parked ambulance and realizes he has finally tracked down their secret hideout. Standing outside the building, the creepy boy smiles wickedly as he thinks about meeting the popular girl again. The thief suddenly pauses when he remembers that their tough classmate is supposed to carry a dangerous gun. Standing near the entrance, the sneaky intruder realizes a direct attack is too risky and decides to plan his next move. Suddenly, the two boys step outside the building while discussing the tough leader's old life in another country. Peeking from his hiding spot, the thief feels relieved to see his enemies leaving the area to start their daily patrol. A wicked smile appears on his face when he realizes the beautiful classmate is currently left completely defenseless inside. Meanwhile, some dangerous creatures continue to linger inside the dark shadows of the quiet neighborhood streets. Continuing their walk, the young student asks about his companion's past and gets shocked to learn he used a firearm as a kid. The survivor explains how his family got labeled as traitors, which forced him to defeat a bad soldier and run away. Minjun is completely amazed to hear that his tough friend was only 12 when he had to escape his country. The leader explains that citizens from his homeland are not all super strong, but his long journey made him adapt. Meanwhile, inside room 203, the popular classmate sits on the bed while looking incredibly irritated. She complains to the friendly mother that her companions are annoying her, especially the weak boy who keeps risking his life. The girl admits that she is terrified of her companion dying because she has no idea what she would do without him. Smiling warmly, the mother asks if she has romantic feelings for her classmate, which makes the girl quickly deny everything. Left alone with her thoughts, the teenager wonders if she is actually starting to fall in love with the quiet student. Yenna tries to convince herself that she does not actually have feelings for the quiet student. She remembers him saying she changed and realizes that the end of the world has made everyone equal. Before the apocalypse, her life was great, and every single boy would constantly try to hit on her. The popular girl suddenly gets annoyed because the protagonist is the only guy who does not chase her. A sudden knocking sound at the door instantly interrupts her thoughts and startles the two women. While the friendly mother prepares to open the door, the nervous teenager warns her to wait a second. Loud knocking rattles the door and scares the popular classmate, who immediately calls out to the intruder. Peeking through the tiny peephole reveals a dark and completely empty hallway with no signs of movement. Outside the room, we see the tattooed thief holding a knife while feeling excited after hearing her voice. The sneaky boy decides to inspect the other rooms first and spots a door marked with a giant red letter X. Suddenly, the intruder hears some noises nearby and slowly approaches the entrance of room number 206. Sliding the door open, he instantly confronts the professor, who is just preparing to step out of the room. The terrified father demands to know his identity, while the creepy teenager casually announces he is looking for Yenna. The shock only intensifies when the dangerous invader demands to know if anyone else is hiding inside with them. The tattooed thief threatens the professor with his knife, and a loud noise startles the young boy nearby. Hearing his father get violently attacked, the brave child screams in terror and tries to protect him from the cruel killer. The loud commotion alerts the worried mother, who ignores all warnings and frantically runs out to save her family. Knowing she must fight, the brave girl frantically searches her bag and pulls out the tactical knife to face the danger. Her two companions suddenly return from their patrol and urge her to stay back as they prepare to confront the intruder. Inside the dark room, the cruel bully holds down the terrified professor while demanding to know who else is hiding there. Suddenly, the tough leader enters the room with his rifle and aims it directly at the dangerous intruder to save the family. Staring coldly at his old classmate, the brave teen warns that he has one bullet left and prepares to end the threat. He pulls the trigger, but the rifle suddenly malfunctions and jams, leaving the young survivor in complete shock. Taking advantage of the situation, the angry bully charges forward and knocks the weapon away to attack with his knife. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a few moments earlier when the two boys were still navigating the quiet streets outside. The young student suddenly stops walking, which prompts his tough companion to turn around and ask what is wrong. Minjin lifts his shirt and feels horrified when he notices the painful symptoms of the infection are returning. Noticing his heavy sweat, his tough companion immediately suggests heading back to the motel to rest. Clutching his side, the poor boy begins to panic as the agonizing pain suddenly starts to get much worse. Their quiet walk gets interrupted when a terrifying scream suddenly echoes from a nearby building. Rushing inside, the tough leader instantly locks into a dangerous struggle against the sneaky intruder. Using his superior combat speed, the brave survivor lands a precise strike that successfully stops the attacker. Swiftly countering the attack, the brave leader delivers a precise cut and a powerful kick to push the thief back. Panting heavily, the shocked intruder wonders how many times he got hit by such a fast opponent. Looking at the bloody blade, the thief realizes that tackling his opponent is far too dangerous. Standing firmly in the dark hallway, Hakshiol calmly asks the cruel intruder how many innocent people he has killed. With an intense look on his face, the strong fighter says he also gets a massive rush from taking down criminals. Terrified by his cold expression, the nervous bully immediately backs away and tries to propose a peaceful deal. The sneaky intruder offers to leave without hurting anyone if they simply hand over his classmate and the popular girl. The angry bully demands that they drop their knives so they can settle things with a fair brawl. He calls his opponent a massive coward for refusing to fight him using only their bare hands. Without warning, the tough leader swiftly slashes the thief's hand and leaves him screaming in pain. The bleeding bully throws a wild tantrum about fair play while the quiet survivor stares back with cold eyes. Terrified of dying, the mean kid suddenly starts begging for mercy and promises to save the injured professor. Hakshiol remains completely unfazed and calmly explains that the cruel killer must pay for his sins with death. Realizing he has no way out, the trembling bully finally loses his grip and drops his bloody knife to the floor. Suddenly, the defeated intruder grabs his bag strap and prepares for one final desperate move. Screaming a dark threat, the crazy thief launches himself forward to attack the tough guide. Surprised by the sudden assault, the brave survivor immediately engages in a wild struggle for the knife. Both teenagers crash heavily onto the tiled floor as they desperately try to overpower each other. Using all of his strength, the skilled leader pins his opponent down to finish the brutal hallway fight. Laughing wickedly, the trapped criminal boasts about his hidden strength and startles his opponent. Holding his heavy nailed bat, the brave protagonist suddenly steps forward to save his companion from danger. Minjin lands a surprise strike on the thief, which makes the cruel intruder scream in intense pain. Whispering the protagonist's name, the exhausted leader finally loses consciousness and closes his eyes. The bloody pocket knife slips from his relaxed hand and clatters loudly onto the tiled floor. Standing up with a wicked smile, the crazy thief begins mocking the protagonist for trying to fight back. Clutching his side, the sick teenager realizes that his terrible infection is acting up at the worst possible moment. Realizing the defenders are down, the killer notices his bleeding hand and promises to make them pay. Dropping his heavy bat, the protagonist undergoes a terrifying change that leaves the cruel intruder screaming in fear. Screaming in intense pain, the teenager shocks the thief, who prepares to eliminate him immediately. Clutching his stomach, the sick boy stumbles backward through the hallway and leans against a room door. He suddenly starts banging on the door and loud monster growls instantly echo from inside the room. The dangerous thief is completely shocked when the boy continues banging on the door to wake the monsters. Realizing the boy is doing something crazy, the angry thief charges forward to finish him off first. Turning the handle, the clever student quickly opens the door and dives straight inside the dark room. The door quickly slams shut, leaving the frustrated killer alone in the silent hallway. Dark shadows move inside the room as the infected creatures prepare to attack. Entering the room, the young man stands calmly among the growling monsters while his pursuer watches in complete shock. The cruel killer gasps in disbelief when he notices that the dangerous creatures are completely ignoring his target. Looking at his enemies, the teenager remembers a dark time from middle school when the bullies forced him to do humiliating things. Memories of getting beaten in the school hallway flood his mind as he recalls how much they enjoyed ruining his entire life. The malicious bully Songbin constantly mocked him and made sure to destroy every bit of his self-esteem. His trauma got even worse when the cruel group brought up his deceased father to torment him at the construction site. He remembers the terrifying moment the heartless leader kicked him and threatened to murder his mother if he died. Staring at his pale hand, the infected student realizes that the bully is the sole reason his life became a complete nightmare. Pointing at his target, the infected boy commands the growling monsters to attack the cruel criminal. Extremely shocked by the crazy situation, the terrifying thief quickly turns around and flees down the hallway. Desperate to escape the oncoming horde, the young intruder runs inside a random room and locks the door. His plan backfires instantly when a bloodthirsty monster inside the room immediately lunges at him. The teenager struggles against the fierce creature and manages to eliminate it after a brutal fight. Panting heavily, the wounded criminal wonders where his enemy went and searches the quiet corridor. Suddenly, a terrifying growl echoes from the darkness and catches the attention of the sweaty teenager. Heavy footsteps slowly approach his location as a dark shadow moves across the blood-stained floor. The thief stands frozen in the dark hallway as several bloodthirsty monsters slowly approach his position. Another survivor inside the building hears a quiet voice and gasps when he spots the injured professor on the floor. Suddenly, a group of ferocious monsters charges down the corridor and forces the terrified thief to run for his life. Spotting room number 210, the desperate killer quickly turns the handle and slips inside to escape the horde. The mindless creatures slam violently against the door while trying to break inside the dark room after their prey. Leaning against the entrance, the breathless intruder lets out a sigh of relief before hearing a scary growl behind him. A bloodthirsty zombie hidden in the darkness suddenly lunges forward and violently tackles the shocked killer. Standing in the blood-stained hallway, the teenager listens to the terrifying growls of monsters echoing from nearby rooms. Hearing the commotion, Hakshiol quickly runs into the room and gets shocked to find the injured professor lying on the floor. The dying professor calmly explains that the main problem is the infected knife used by their cruel attacker. Refusing to give up, the tough leader orders the little boy to apply pressure while he runs to grab their medical supplies. Stepping out into the dark corridor, Hakshiol spots his quiet classmate standing right outside the locked doors. The boy explains how he trapped the monsters inside, but warns that their old-school bully managed to escape through a window. He reveals that the dangerous creatures completely ignore him whenever his own virus symptoms start to flare up. The nervous teenager quickly asks about the professor and gets worried when his friend looks back with a grim face. Their tough guide tells the girls to treat the victim while the boy worries about having only one single bullet left. After quickly fixing the jammed firearm, the strong leader reminds his friend how to properly handle the weapon in a fight. While their guide suggests helping the professor first, the angry teenager declares that he must kill the bully himself. Asking his tough friend to watch over the family, the brave boy prepares to head back out into the dangerous area alone. Leaving the safe motel behind, the teenager follows a fresh trail of blood to track down his enemy on the ruined streets. Following the blood trail, the teenager feels relieved when he notices that his own infection symptoms are slowly fading. Looking up at the clear sky, he carefully follows the fresh drops of blood splattered across the concrete barriers. Meanwhile, the injured school bully hides in the shadows of an alleyway and desperately vows to survive this nightmare. Limping in pain, the weak bully regrets his choices before slipping inside a dark building to find a safe hiding spot. Rummaging through some wooden drawers, he furiously searches for medical supplies while cursing his enemies for his injuries. Suddenly, a loud clicking sound echoes behind him, and the bully freezes in complete shock when he spots his old victim. The shocked bully wonders how he got tracked down, while the teenager calmly says he followed the scent of blood. Smiling wickedly, the enemy mentions his immunity and mockingly asks if his rifle is actually broken. The protagonist remains completely silent as the bad guy asks if he has ever killed anyone. Looking down, the teenager admits that he has never taken a single life during his struggle to survive. Raising his loaded firearm, the brave student declares that his very first kill is going to happen today. The cornered bully suddenly bursts into a nervous fit of laughter to hide his rising fear. He confidently claims that the good student is simply not a bad person like himself. The bad guy warns that murder is a serious crime and wonders if he will ever find peace after taking a life. The coward even offers a fake apology and claims they were only playing around like friends back in school. Aiming his weapon, the teenager coldly states that a cruel person like him does not deserve to stay alive. With a loud bang, the young man pulls the trigger and delivers a decisive shot to end his enemy. Fresh blood splatters across the walls as the bully collapses heavily onto the dirty floor. Standing in complete silence, the student lets go of his weapon as his hands begin to shake violently. The teenager stares down at the lifeless body of his old-school tormentor who will never bother him again. Leaving the motel behind, the exhausted student slowly walks back onto the quiet streets with his weapon. His eyes suddenly widen in shock when he notices his beautiful classmate waiting outside with tears in her eyes. Crying on his shoulder, the popular girl hugs him outside the motel while saying something happened to the professor. Entering the room, they find the injured professor lying on the bed while trying to reassure his crying family. The dying father reveals his secret cancer diagnosis and gently tells his weeping son to go find his sister. The professor calmly explains that everyone eventually dies anyway, while the quiet teenager watches him in silence. Inside room 206, the dying father unexpectedly reveals that his cancer story was actually a complete lie. The professor explains that he only made up the illness so his young son would feel a little less sad about his passing. He desperately begs the teenagers to keep this secret because it is the last way he can protect his child. Looking out the window, the old man calmly admits he had a good life but deeply regrets not seeing his daughter one last time. The dying father looks at their tough leader and begs him to help his family find the missing girl. Tears stream down her face as the heartbroken mother holds his hand and promises to protect their children. The father requests that they simply lock him inside the bedroom and leave him behind if he turns into a monster. The group locks the infected professor inside a room, while he begs them to return if a cure is ever developed. Standing on the rooftop of the motel, the three teenagers quietly discuss the bleak future of their world. Their tough guide calmly explains that finding a working medical cure is probably going to be almost impossible. The popular classmate suddenly brings up the hallway incident and notes that the monsters completely ignored him. She wonders if he has some weird power, since it looked like he was actually giving orders to the infected. The embarrassed boy denies the crazy idea and explains that he only screamed because he was incredibly angry. He suggests the beasts simply attacked the bully because he was standing right in front of them at the time. Staring into the distance, the protagonist remembers a special ruler character from his favorite zombie video game. The teenager explains the legendary undead king from his game but doubts he actually has that incredible power. Standing nearby, his beautiful classmate begins to worry that she might eventually catch the dangerous virus from him. The popular girl starts having wild thoughts about how his condition makes romance completely impossible for the boy. Feeling highly embarrassed, she quickly walks away while her companion watches her with complete confusion. Leaving their temporary shelter behind, the survivors pack their heavy gear and prepare to board the ambulance. The strong leader offers to drive the massive vehicle since legal rules no longer matter in the apocalypse. A quiet glance reveals that the professor's young son is still feeling incredibly downcast after the tragedy. Before leaving, the tough leader tells the protagonist to sit in the back with his classmate. Starting up the heavy engine, the professor's old ambulance slowly rolls out of the motel parking lot. While driving down the road, the tough teen starts talking to the young boy about his own past. He admits that he lost his little brother during his escape and had no time to grieve back then. The strong guide warns the child that he must stay strong to protect his remaining family. Hearing those heavy words, the young boy wipes his sweat and quietly promises to do his best. Suddenly, their tough driver spots something strange on the road and halts the vehicle in shock. Looking at the messy street ahead, the survivors realize that their path is completely blocked. Stopping the heavy ambulance on the road, the group suddenly gets blocked by a bizarre black truck. Everyone gets terrified after noticing a blood-covered man tied to a massive wooden cross on the front bumper. Unbelievably, the scary armored vehicle completely blocks their only escape route in the middle of the street. To stay safe, the terrified survivors quickly hide inside the ambulance while their driver watches the enemy. While looking outside, the beautiful girl wonders if some nearby monsters actually forced the vehicle to halt. The tied man lets out a terrifying scream while the heavy truck suddenly screeches to a complete stop. To prepare for the worst, their tough guide quietly grips his sharp knife and calculates his next move. Things get even worse when several bloodthirsty monsters suddenly spot the commotion and start running toward them. A silenced gun barrel suddenly pokes out of the armored truck and delivers a quick shot to a nearby monster. The quiet driver hears the weird noise while the bad guys inside the truck laugh about their perfect headshot. The raiders plan to search for more food and survivors to fill their quota as the two vehicles pass each other. Fortunately, the dangerous group does not spot the ambulance, and they continue driving down the quiet street. Letting out a heavy sigh, our tough guide urges everyone to move fast because he feels extremely uneasy. Driving past massive office buildings, they notice several wrecked cars, but the path remains mostly clear. Our driver notes that the road is fine, but the teenagers worry about what to do if they have to travel on foot. The tough survivor estimates they will reach the subway station soon and can easily walk the last few kilometers. Glancing at his side mirror, the tough driver gets shocked to see the scary armored truck tailing them closely. The professor's old ambulance quickly screeches around the corner to escape the dangerous raiders. Despite his fast driving, the armed thugs continue to tail them closely down the quiet streets. Things get much worse when the road ahead is suddenly blocked by a massive pile of wrecked cars. Looking around in panic, the young leader suddenly spots a dark underground parking garage. Even though monsters might be hiding inside, the driver decides to turn the vehicle toward the dark entrance. Inside the back, the popular classmate gets incredibly terrified after learning about the dangerous chase. The underground garage turns out to be a dead end, which leaves the young driver with no other choices. Turning to the passengers, the tough student orders everyone to wait inside while he prepares to face the threat alone. Inspecting his useless rifle with an attached knife, he knows he is at a major disadvantage against real guns. Sneaking up the dark concrete ramp, the brave teenager tries to remain as quiet as possible to avoid detection. Peeking outside the entrance, the boy gets surprised when he notices that the raiders are not entering the garage. He witnesses a heavily armed thug standing near the black truck and planning to search the area for survivors. The teenager gets completely shocked after spotting a highly advanced automatic rifle in the hands of the enemy. Realizing they stand absolutely no chance against such heavy weapons, the boy decides they must escape immediately. The teenagers quickly run out of the ambulance, and the strong leader asks his friend if the virus symptoms are returning. Turning to the popular girl, he asks about the monsters, and she confirms she can sense about 4 or 5 nearby. The brave survivor slowly enters the dark parking garage and notices fresh blood splattered near an empty vehicle. He carefully guides the rest of the survivors through the dark building until they spot an open emergency door. Their tough guide orders the protagonist to lead the group upstairs to find a secure room to hide from danger. He plans to face the armed thug alone in close combat because he knows they have absolutely no bullets left. After telling them to remain hidden, the brave teenager grabs his weapon and heads back out into the dark hallway alone. Hearing monsters scream in the dark garage, the tough fighter realizes that indoor gunshots will quickly draw a massive crowd. Noting the enemy has plenty of ammunition, the brave survivor decides to retreat if things get too dangerous. Quietly leading the other survivors into a dark academy building, the protagonist finds an empty classroom to hide. Sitting down in the quiet classroom, the popular girl lets out a heavy sigh and prays that their tough guide stays safe. Suddenly, the young student announces his plan to go help their friend, but the popular girl quickly grabs his hand to stop him. Looking up with a worried expression, the beautiful classmate begs him to stay next to her before letting go in embarrassment. The boy agrees that confronting armed thugs is far too risky and suggests waiting for their skilled companion to return. The popular girl begs her companion to stay inside with her, and the young student slowly nods in agreement. Time passes slowly in the quiet hallway, while the two classmates continue to worry about their tough guide. Suddenly, a loud banging sound from the lobby startles the teenagers and forces the boy to go check the area. They hear heavy rattling noises as someone violently shakes the locked entrance door to force their way inside. Looking extremely worried, the beautiful girl wonders if their brave savior has finally returned to the building. Things get complicated when they hear angry human voices complaining about the locked door from the other side. Hearing them talk about retrieving their hidden supplies makes the shocked teenager realize they are not alone. The teenager slowly walks toward the entrance while his classmate frantically screams that the person outside is infected. Ignoring her loud protests, the brave boy decides to take a risk and quickly unlocks the door to check on the visitor. He gets shocked to find his 2 high school friends standing in the doorway, and they all stare in complete disbelief. The boys wonder why the popular girl is with him, while she suddenly detects a highly suspicious odor in the hallway. Covering her face, she points at the heavy student and yells at everyone to kick him out before he attacks them. Leaning close to inspect his classmate, the protagonist laughs and explains that his friend just has terrible body odor. Feeling deeply embarrassed, the group finally walks inside the room and leaves the quiet corridor completely empty. Minjun gets shocked to learn about the massive Gunja Station shelter network that his friends are currently patrolling. Stepping forward, the anxious mother shows them a photo of her 20-year-old daughter who went missing during the outbreak. The friends recognize her face and mention seeing a similar girl in the isolation sector near exit number 1. Although the mother feels relieved, the boys explain that they cannot fully guarantee her safety without checking in person. Interrupting the happy moment, the teenager asks if they spotted any dangerous raiders with weapons on their way to the base. The popular classmate explains their situation while dramatically covering her nose to block the terrible smell of his friend. The boys get surprised after learning that their tough classmate from North Korea is actually traveling with the group. Hearing that their brave guide has been gone for 30 minutes, they decide to quickly head up to the roof to check on him. Yena tightly holds his jacket and begs the boy to either stay behind or take her along with them. He reassures the beautiful girl and tells her to wait safely downstairs with the family while they check the roof. His companions watch this close interaction with complete disbelief and warn him to not wander off too far. Climbing up the dark staircase, they finally reach the sunny rooftop and look down at the completely empty streets. Peering through his binoculars, the teenager worries about their tough guide since they cannot hear any gunshots nearby. Suddenly, Byungjin grabs his collar and aggressively demands to know if he is actually dating the popular girl. The protagonist gets completely shocked by the sudden accusation, while his angry classmate threatens to drop him. His friends explain that the popular classmate always hated losers, but she is simply too beautiful to ignore. They tease him because the gorgeous girl used to despise him the most, but now she wants to stay by his side. The boy tries to explain that she is just lonely after losing her family, but his friends do not believe him. Shifting the subject, the classmates reveal that a scary shootout actually took place near their camp recently. They explain how they use special radio devices to call for armed backup whenever they run into bad people. The classmate suggests waiting at this location a bit longer before they all travel to the main train station. Looking at their walkie-talkie, the boy realizes that it looks exactly like the radio their tough guide possesses. The teenager suddenly remembers that their brave guide left his backpack with the radio inside the ambulance. Bayoungjin reports their location through his walkie-talkie and asks if they can bring 4 school friends back. The responder demands that all newcomers must go to a clinic for testing and isolation before entering the base. The teen promises to follow the rules but requests to search for their missing companion before they depart tomorrow. Learning about the mandatory testing process, the protagonist gets extremely nervous as his friend explains the rules. Cold sweat drips when the boy learns that anyone who tests positive for the virus faces immediate execution on the spot. Clutching his stomach, the infected teenager realizes that he will definitely fail the test and get eliminated. Meanwhile, a sudden static noise echoes on a different rooftop as their tough guide continues to watch the streets. An enemy scout spots 3 survivors on the rooftop and reports it to his team over a walkie-talkie. The masked raider hears that their target with the military rifle is still on the loose somewhere. His boss commands him to capture the newcomers alive if possible or eliminate them if they try to resist. Feeling anxious, the lonely scout uses his binoculars to check the floors of the nearby building. Meanwhile, the protagonist walks alongside his 2 high school friends and considers them very trustworthy. The worried boy wonders if he should tell them about his strange infection and his potential immunity. He fears that getting a positive test result from their camp doctors will only put his life in danger. Walking along the rooftop, the protagonist considers sending his friends to the safe shelter first while he stays behind. Moving inside the dark school building, the ticking wall clock reveals that a lot of time has already passed. Holding the silent walkie-talkie, the heavy friend worries that their tough guide is in some serious trouble. While the boy decides to wait a little longer, a sudden squeaking sound from the door instantly catches his attention. The 3 high school classmates quickly turn around to search the empty hallway for any hidden dangers. Morning sun shines over the quiet city streets while a window on the side of the academy building slowly creaks open. Peeking through the gap, a masked scout confirms that the survivors are all gathered together inside the building. Standing outside, the scout decides it is finally time to initiate his attack on the silent building. Inside the classroom, some survivors bossily demand that the 2 boys go outside to keep watch. Sudden glass-breaking sounds echo down the hallway and immediately startle the worried teenagers. Running quickly down the corridor, the boy gets shocked to find a room completely engulfed in wild flames. He screams for a fire extinguisher after realizing that someone is actively throwing firebombs into their shelter. The panicked teenager tells the girls that their location has been exposed and they must leave immediately. Grabbing his walkie-talkie, the student frantically reports the surprise attack and begs their base for backup. While urging everyone to pack up and escape, the beautiful classmate looks completely terrified by the sudden crisis. Ignoring his friend's warnings, the brave teenager steps forward and quickly opens the door. His eyes widen in shock when he spots a group of bloodthirsty monsters slowly climbing up the dark stairs. Backing away, the group realizes that the emergency exit is compromised, and someone guided the beasts to them. Clutching his stomach, the sick boy panics because his special virus symptoms are not kicking in this time. He remembers his fight with the bully and suspects that intense anger is the secret key to using his powers. Desperate for survival, the teenager suddenly starts screaming and cursing his dead enemy to trigger his virus. The nervous classmates warn him that military backup will take at least 10 minutes to navigate the chaos. Before they can even process his weird behavior, a massive blaze suddenly begins to block their only exit. The brave teenager announces his plan to lure the dangerous monsters away so his friends can safely escape. Giving his backpack to his friend, he suggests that they should meet up at Gunja Station if they get separated. Although his popular classmate tries to hold him back, the brave boy runs straight into the dark corridor. Screaming at the top of his lungs, the young student successfully catches the attention of the nearby horde. While running up the stairs, he realizes that his weird immunity makes him the perfect bait to save his friends. Dozens of bloodthirsty creatures chase him up the dark stairs as the boy quickly bursts through a rooftop door. Running onto the rooftop, the boy hopes to lose the monsters but stops in shock when he reaches the edge. Looking down at the massive gap between the buildings, the sweating teenager realizes there is no easy way down. He suddenly remembers the day of the outbreak when he wanted to jump, but meeting the popular girl saved his life. Knowing he is only alive because of her, he remembers his firm promise to survive this nightmare together. Turning back to face the oncoming horde, the brave student flips them off and refuses to die in this place. Taking a deep breath, the teenager leaps across the giant gap between the rooftops while screaming at the top of his lungs. While evacuating down the dark stairs, the popular girl desperately hopes that her brave companion will make it back alive. Her friends confirm that the path below is completely clear, but she can only focus on the boy who sacrificed himself. Screaming at the top of his lungs, the brave teenager leaps across the massive gap between the tall buildings. His feet suddenly slip as he lands, causing him to crash violently through some dusty school desks. He tumbles across the messy floor and groans in absolute agony after taking such a brutal impact. Lying helpless among the broken furniture, the exhausted student slowly tries to recover his strength. A sharp throbbing pain suddenly shoots through his leg, and the boy realizes he landed terribly wrong. The young student gets startled when a masked scout suddenly approaches and boasts about his lucky find. Before the poor teen can explain his identity, the cruel attacker delivers a violent kick to his injured side. Pulling out his radio, the scout informs his team that he successfully captured a member of the rival camp. Ignoring the teenager's pleas, the merciless hunter delivers another heavy blow that sends him crashing into the desks. Meanwhile, inside a quiet billiards hall, the other survivors gather while trying to verify if the area is safe. A heavy student named Kim Dongjun contacts their base over a walkie-talkie to confirm that backup has finally arrived. Refusing to flee with the group, the popular classmate suddenly shocks everyone by deciding to stay behind alone. While some classmates suggest running to the nearby subway shelter, the popular girl refuses to leave her companions behind. Understanding her deep worry, the friendly mother suggests that their missing friends might already be heading to the safe zone. Peeking outside a different building, the survivors notice a heavily armed group of soldiers patrolling the streets below. Inside a dark bathroom, the masked raider corners the captured teenager and accuses him of lying about his friends. Trying to find an escape, the young student warns about the fire next door, but the criminal completely ignores the danger. Pulling out a sharp knife, the crazy villain threatens to end the teenager's life if his missing partner does not return. Suddenly, the boy begins to sweat heavily as the painful virus symptoms unexpectedly return at the worst possible moment. The crazy criminal tightly binds the teenager's hands while laughing that he will die from the virus anyway. A sudden knock on the bathroom door startles the scout, who quickly calls out a secret password to verify the visitor. Listening in silence, the bound student feels extremely confused by the bizarre words. Hearing the correct reply from the other side of the entrance, the relieved scout quickly opens the door to welcome his ally. Instead of his partner, the brave leader stands outside with his rifle and instantly takes down the shocked criminal. Stepping inside the quiet room, the tough savior calls out his friend's name and leaves him completely relieved. The tough student explains he was busy interrogating an enemy nearby, which is why he arrived so late to help. The teenager wonders if his brave savior belongs to the special forces, since his fighting skills are so amazing. His friend reveals that Yena and the others were successfully rescued by trustworthy soldiers from the subway base. While trying to stand up, the boy struggles to walk due to a painful leg injury from his massive rooftop leap. The savior kindly returns the lost glasses, which he luckily managed to retrieve from the school roof earlier. Stepping outside, the teenager worries that his returning virus symptoms will get him executed at the military camp. As they slowly navigate the quiet streets, the boy wonders who these dangerous armed raiders actually are. The bleeding captive desperately reveals their secret meeting password and temporary base location near the river. The captive explains that his partner got cut by a blade covered in infected blood and quickly turned into a monster. Showing off his own bloody blade, the tough survivor threatens to perform some dark experiments on the captive. He asks how the infection spreads and wonders if a few cuts will turn the criminal into a creature. Terrified of getting infected, the captive quickly confesses that he is an escaped prisoner from a country jail. The tough leader realizes that these thugs are just greedy criminals who entered the city to rob empty shops. Pointing at the rifle, the survivor demands to know where a group of escaped convicts managed to find military gear. The captive explains that their advanced weapons actually came from a supply box dropped by a helicopter. The captured thug reveals that their boss has more guns and tells them the military supplies were dropped for special forces. The strong leader suspects that someone is dropping weapons on purpose, while the teenager starts making a scary connection. Suddenly, the tough guide stops in his tracks when he notices several bloody bodies lying across the concrete street. They spot a burning vehicle and a massive warning banner that threatens to shoot anyone who tries to get closer. The protagonist wonders if they finally reach the shelter, but stops when he spots a military guard on a high roof. Instead of welcoming them, the cold soldier quickly aims his rifle directly at the two terrified teenagers. A loud gunshot suddenly echoes through the quiet street, forcing the startled teenagers to quickly dive for cover. Hearing sudden gunshots, the teenagers get shocked to see rabid beasts charging straight toward their position. Knowing the loud noise will attract a massive swarm, they quickly run down a narrow alley to escape the danger. The protagonist suggests that his friend run ahead alone since the creatures will only ignore his sick body. Their escape route leads straight into a dead end while a group of fast monsters continues to hunt them down. Raising his rifle, the tough survivor delivers a precise shot to stop the closest enemy in its tracks. Suddenly, a hidden door opens and some armed men shout for the teenagers to quickly slide inside to safety. The heavy metal gate quickly slams shut and traps the remaining furious beasts on the outside. Instead of a warm welcome, the armed soldiers immediately order the two boys to drop their weapons. Pointing at the dropped military rifle, the suspicious guard demands to know where the boys managed to find it. Raising their hands, the teenagers try to explain they are just normal high schoolers, but the angry men refuse to believe them. After hearing about the recent shootout, the aggressive soldier snaps and accuses them of working with the raiders. Stepping forward, the other guard calms his partner down and explains that they must follow procedures for everyone's safety. Hearing about the mandatory virus test, the pale protagonist looks at his hand and worries because he is secretly infected. To buy some time, the boy mentions his classmates who are already inside the shelter and asks if they can meet them first. Pulling out his radio, the officer contacts the main control room to check if the two students have returned from their patrol. As evening falls over the quiet city, the walkie-talkie suddenly buzzes with an incoming reply from the base. The radio report reveals that Sunho returned safely, but Byung-jun is still missing, which shocks the pale teenager. They learn that the popular girl decided to stay behind to search for her friends alongside their missing classmate. Confirming her identity, the guards explain that Yena is definitely the one waiting out there in the dangerous streets. The guard tells them to lower their hands, but the worried boy instantly begs to head back out to rescue her. Denying his request, the officer explains that leaving the camp is strictly forbidden once night begins to fall. While heading toward the mandatory virus testing area, the tough guide quickly supports his injured companion. Walking past the heavy barricades, they learn how the military helped expand this massive shelter for survivors. The guard points out a nearby office building and explains that they are still trying to clear out the monsters inside. Looking at the strong defense walls, the infected teenager feels incredibly anxious about his upcoming medical exam. Nearby, we see a massive fire raging while the popular girl finds his spiked bat on the floor and hopes he is still alive. When a classmate warns her that the fire is spreading, she calmly tells him to go away because she wants to search alone. The boy insists on staying to protect her with his new gun, but she wonders if he even knows how to shoot a real weapon. He stutters while making excuses, but she simply walks away and declares that she only needs her two trusted companions. Looking at the popular girl, the heavy classmate starts imagining a romantic scenario where she suddenly thanks him. Reality hits him hard when she insults his dreams, but still admits that she hates being completely alone in the chaos. Their conversation gets cut short when a sudden clicking noise from a nearby door instantly startles the two teenagers. Quickly hiding behind a concrete wall, they ready their weapons to prepare for any potential danger. The beautiful girl wonders if her missing friends have finally returned, or if a dangerous monster is approaching. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the dark isolation building where the military has set up their main defense camp. Walking down the lit corridor, the young student hopes that his missing mother is also resting in a secure place. Minjun reunites with Sunho and immediately asks if they sent help for their friends. Sunho nervously reveals that they sent some rescuers but have completely lost contact with Byung-jun. On the silent school rooftop, we see the missing walkie-talkie lying abandoned on the cold floor. Inside the shelter isolation room, Minjun tries to leave, but the armed guards block his path. The guards warn him that the streets are too dangerous at night and suggest letting the reckless boy go. A veteran 28-year-old soldier named Ha Do-yeon gets confused by his sudden urge to leave. Even his tough companion Hakshiol agrees that running outside with an injured leg is completely crazy. The brave protagonist remains determined and tells his friend to stay behind while he searches for the others. Hakshiol looks at the boy and decides that it is finally time to break his own golden rule of survival. The soldier agrees to let them leave early and even lends them a fully charged electric scooter to help with his bad leg. As the teenager packs his bag, their tough classmate watches with a very serious and determined look on his face. Stepping forward, the brave fighter shocks everyone by announcing that he will also join the dangerous mission. The guards can only watch in complete disbelief while muttering that absolutely everyone in this place has gone crazy. Outside, the dark facility night quickly falls over the city while several hungry monsters roam near the iron gates. Standing by the exit, the guard details a safe route and warns that many infected creatures are waiting in the dark. Handing over a powerful handgun, the soldier wishes them luck, and the grateful teenagers quickly thank him for the help. Holding his walkie-talkie, the guard orders his team to fire and draw the monsters away from the gate. As the gate slowly squeaks open, the two boys quickly ride their electric scooters into the dark streets. Watching them leave, the soldier realizes that the person they are searching for must be someone they truly love. Inside a building marked as a luxury room, the popular classmate suddenly gets thrown to the floor. A creepy escaped prisoner smiles wickedly and admits he is extremely happy to find such a beautiful girl. Surrounded by the dangerous criminals, the helpless teenager trembles in fear while they decide what to do next. A muscular fighter named Jihu suddenly steps forward and grabs the terrified girl by her chin to inspect her face. Leaning close to the beautiful girl, the muscular fighter asks for her age while she looks away in absolute terror. Turning to his companions, the handsome thug warns them to not touch the teenager because she is simply too young for them. A 34-year-old criminal named Tasik laughs at his warning and claims that rules no longer exist in this new world. Staring with cold eyes, the young fighter delivers a terrifying threat that instantly forces the older criminal to back down. The captured classmate Byungjin gasps in horror when the crazy leader calmly decides to eliminate him on the spot. Jihu explains his plan of using the beautiful prisoner as bait so they can easily take over the massive subway station. Yena screams in complete shock after hearing that these dangerous convicts are actually planning to murder her friend. The captured student desperately begs the thugs to spare her life while secretly hoping she might actually like him. The popular girl only wants to save him because of her companion, which makes the boy feel pathetic for dreaming of romance. Laughing cruelly, the older thugs suggest playing some sick games with the captured teenager before ending his life. The muscular leader turns to the beautiful girl and asks how a weak person like her managed to survive the outbreak. Suddenly, the crazy leader orders his men to prepare a dark plan which leaves the popular girl completely terrified. The other thugs laugh and praise their heartless boss for showing absolutely no mercy to a weak female prisoner. Squatting down, the handsome leader warns her to protect her own body and suddenly grabs her hand to stop her defense. The 26-year-old leader named Jihu leans close to the terrified girl and whispers some dark advice. Suddenly, the door swings open and the popular girl gets thrown onto the floor of a blood-stained room. Clutching her tiny fork, she freezes in fear when terrifying growls suddenly echo from behind a locked door. The entrance suddenly swings open and a bloody monster with no arms collapses heavily onto the floor. Standing at the doorway, the cruel criminal explains that he cut off the creature's limbs to give her an advantage. The young man warns her to go crazy to survive in this harsh world before locking the door and leaving her inside. Hearing a terrifying growl, the girl stares at her tiny fork and wonders how she can possibly fight with it. Suddenly, the armless zombie lunges forward with a loud screech which makes the popular classmate scream in terror.